tactic. Never mind the fact that Harry Potter was based on a successful book series. In the studio's eyes, you could now bleed a series dry. And no better blood cow than the superhero genre, which was a naturally serialized source material. Not to mention that they are generally broad action-adventure comedy films with a lot of CGI, which in turn meant that they were global and modular. Another extremely important detail that gets missed about this era is that these films also weren't censored. So hey, plug them in, possible. But there's no denying that homogeneity I mentioned before, or that the worst qualities that have always existed in the big budget studio system have now ramped up way more, because it is different now in ways that it never was before, specifically when it comes to technology and the general state of capitalism. And we are going to explore all of that. But it's important to recognize that we have, and will, always make terrible movies. They made 4 Planet of the Apes sequels in the 70s, and I'm guessing most of those weren't very good.
Out of the Forbidden City they roared, to settle once and for all who had the right to rule the planet, ape or man.
Ooh, never mind. That actually looks pretty great. I want to see Severin Darden as Culp.
You skipped me
So
back.
here's an idea. We're going to take our final and best ad break, and then talk about where this is all. We are back. We are hip, and we are complaining about movies, which is hip and sexy. Before the break, we took you on a harrowing journey through the history of modern blockbuster movies, a 20-year adventure that slowly put the creative power in the hands of producers, making broad, easily digestible, fan-pandering products for as cheap as possible while simultaneously spending way too much money to do that. Meanwhile, the home video market became the streaming market, a business model where people could pay between $5 and $20 a month to have access to an endless library of films. That model, as you can probably tell, isn't sustainable for many reasons. For one, no single film can prove to excel in that market. If, for example, a film becomes a sleeper hit, as in a film that underperforms in theaters but does well on a streaming platform, that doesn't really equate to the studios making more money. Sure, a few new people might sign up for the service, but you can't calculate the success of a film like you could with video rental profits. For that reason, studios have decided to calculate residuals, as in the money artists make from streaming, based on the overall number of subscribers they have, and not how many times that specific film or show was watched. This is currently changing due to the strike, because what that means is that your movie or show could be really popular on streaming, and you couldn't make a cent more for that. And that's assuming your contract even included streaming. This is why we started seeing shows and films get randomly pulled from streaming networks. For the studio, it's just a numbers game. They have a set amount of money coming in from subscribers and a set amount of residuals paid based on the amount of, big quotes, content they have. Those two numbers aren't necessarily linked to each other. So if they want to save money, they just have to delete whatever they deem to be unimportant enough to lose, even if that's a movie that's only been out for a few weeks and didn't even have a chance to be seen. And now, thanks to the oversaturation of the market, the low quality of the product and the high subscription prices, that model is starting to tank. Meanwhile, countries like China boost their own film industries, undercutting ticket prices as well. It's almost like some kind of it's like an inflated thing that's bursting.
A ball sack?
Yes, perfect metaphor. And now the question you might be wondering is how? If the film industry has lost an entire revenue stream with home video, how is it that their executives are still getting paid a ton, you ask, having never looked into capitalism as a system? So this part isn't new. There's a whole Wikipedia page about the term Hollywood accounting. The most common explanation of it is that individual movie productions are legally treated like an independent corporation. This is how movies will be produced and distributed by multiple production companies, all working with this separate entity. So for an actor, you're working for that dummy corporation. You get a share of that company's profits. Meanwhile, the studio charges that company for their sound stages and equipment and so on. And while they still have to maintain the studio, it's not like they're buying new equipment. This is just stuff they have, that they're renting to themselves. This inflates the expenses of that dummy company so much that when the dust settles, there's virtually no amount of money that movie can make to offset that fake cost. And this is how the actor who played Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi hasn't gotten any residuals for that extremely successful movie that technically failed. In short, Hollywood has been and always will be a battle between a large group of creative people who want to make art and a bunch of executives who want to take advantage of that desire. And this is where we get to the strike. You may have heard about the strike going on in Hollywood right now, specifically the Writers Guild of America, which has since ended, and the Screen Actors Guild. They were and are striking to demand more equitable treatment from the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. The AMPT are the people we've been ranting about for many monetizable minutes, because they're the ones making all the decisions and pulling all the strings. And basically, the writers and actors in Hollywood are just asking to be paid a living wage, because currently, they absolutely aren't. Believe it or not, most of Hollywood isn't Tom Cruise. Almost 80% of actors make below $10K a year, and Lord knows they haven't adjusted for inflation. And while most of the industry's creative workers are struggling to survive, Bob Iger and David Zaslav, the current CEOs of Disney and Warner Brothers respectively, were paid a combined total of well over $100 million in the single year of 2021.
Why?
In fact, counting all of his many perks and bonuses, Zaslav alone earned a salary of $246 million in 2021, which is almost enough to produce a single John Carter. Hundreds of millions for the guys that have been deleting titles from their streaming apps like they're about to be named in a Taylor Swift song. You also may have heard that during these strikes, the studios were dabbling with the idea of replacing writers and actors with AI. And in fact, AI is already beginning to replace background actors. And while it may seem like AI isn't good enough to replace these jobs, well, did you hear everything I've said about these studios so far? AI would be perfect for them. It's the natural progression of these executive-driven corporate projects. Cut out the artists completely, or at the very least, limit their power even more. It's also cheaper than artists and completely modular. You can make 10 different versions of the same shitty piece of shit movie that sucks. Who cares if it's derivative? Executives don't see how that's any different than what they've been making for the last 20 years. Derivative sells, because when their business model is completely dependent on getting people into theaters over anything else, all that matters is the marketing of the film, right? If home video sales don't exist, that means a movie doesn't have to stand the test of time. It just has to be successful for a few weekends. That's it. And what better way to get people into seats than a sequel, a remake, or spin-off of a previous hit? It's worked for so long now. Marvel, Terminator, Ghostbusters, Jurassic World, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Batman, Fast and Furious. They've all been paraded out like gussied up elephants in some kind of fanciful elephant parade. And who isn't going to go see the elephant parade? But the thing is, that was only going to work for so long. I have no, science to back this up, but people ultimately tend to like things they haven't seen before, like, I guess, an elephant parade. This is actually why it seems like studio executives learn the wrong lessons from successes. Not because they don't see the right lessons, but because those better lessons aren't marketable or safe under their business model. It's easier to simply make more Mattel films than to gamble hundreds of millions on the vision of artists. And in their heads, the math adds up. Because in their heads, they aren't making art. They're making a product that will make them money now, in the short term. And so every film should be a series. Endless growth means endless sequels. There is no creativity needed to do that. Nor do they care about the human cost of an industry about the humanities, which would be ironic if they understood what that word meant. But they don't, because they don't care about art, despite earning their living in an industry of the arts. If anything, artists get in the way, and you can see their contempt for the artists during this strike. Back in June, Bob Iger said the WGA wasn't being realistic with their demands, despite the fact that, according to the WGA, the total cost of meeting their demands would have set Disney back $75 million. That's less than one Little Mermaid, and Disney generated $82 billion in revenue last year. Iger himself earns 1 million clams a year, and he just signed a 2-year contract that is all but guaranteeing him $50 million extra if he can manage not to quit before the end of next December. See, for these people, the last 20 years have actually been great. Distilling movies into brands and not art completely simplifies the process for an executive, as does changing the balance of power to the producers and not the artists. Sure, there's a Tarantino and a Nolan still making their movies, but that's within a system where for most films, it doesn't matter who stars in or makes that film anymore. People were going to see Ant-Man no matter if Edgar Wright made it or not. Nor does it matter if a movie is good or bad so long as it's based on a popular IP. The last Star Wars movie can be total gibberish, and was that, and it doesn't matter because everyone is going to see it. And now, thanks to AI and digital magic, you can keep using these characters long after the actors have died, or heck, before they die. I mean, we just saw it in The Flash, and it's been happening in some capacity for a while now. Indiana Jones isn't Harrison Ford, he's Mickey Mouse. To the point where they can just de-age him and stick him in a movie, no matter how weird that looks. No more simply recasting characters, a thing that audiences generally accept and aren't confused by. If they get what they want and digitally scan these actors, they can just use them for decades, until that particular IP is sucked dry. As Michael Shannon recently said, more and more are these movies just people playing with action figures. In fact, the upcoming Avengers Secret Wars, which will probably star every Marvel actor ever, from Hugh Jackman to Lou Ferrigno, and make the most money of any movie ever, is based on a comic series that was literally written to sell action figures for Mattel. And in fact, the title Secret Wars was conceived based on the fact that those two words had a favorable reaction by young boys in focus groups. That's what all the adults in the world are going to see for so much money. The end result of stripping films down to their IP and digitizing the pieces is, of course, that those pieces get sold off to everyone. AI is now promising a future where anyone can just make their own Indiana Jones or Star Wars movie using digitally scanned actors and AI writing. What is essentially the plot of Ready Player One, a film specifically about a pop culture dystopia where you can inject yourself into The Shining or use the Iron Giant as a big gun, which he was specifically not.
I am not a gun.
Yeah, bro, I told him. So you might be wondering why this all matters. I mean, besides the fact that it slowly degrades our culture and understanding of art, which plays a huge part in how our society progresses. Actually, that's enough for it to matter, now that I say it out loud. Also, I just think blockbusters should be better, and that's enough. And art matters a lot. That's why we do it and pay money for it. And for a while, the deal was that artists could be paid to make this thing that we all need. But now, the people handing out the checks have no interest in art. And that's for a few reasons. One being that we kind of let it happen, not on purpose, but the last 20 years have given studio executives no incentive to actually make good films that stand the test of time. Fandom got so out of control that the brand became more important than the artists. But, as this episode mentioned at the beginning, things might start getting better. Everything I just said about sequels and remakes and reboots being successful, at least this year, wasn't true. And in the last few years, we've seen that model begin to break as audiences looked for other stories that weren't Star Wars or Marvel. Since the strike, studios have largely been seen as the villain of this story. And I think they are now hopefully realizing that this tactic isn't going to work anymore. Again, I hope. But of course, that doesn't solve streaming, and I don't know, maybe we need to think about a resurgence of physical media? Just an idea that is kind of impossible. Or maybe film will fundamentally change. Maybe people will get more of their satisfaction from other places, and blockbusters will just turn into big rides, and every theater will be converted into those 4D pieces of shit that throw you around so hard you don't notice that the movie's bad. Oh yeah, I love being jostled violently while I'm trying to watch a movie. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but if an action or horror movie has to physically shove you to make you feel excited, then it's probably a bad sign. It's probably a bad movie. But again, it's all about making the movie feel good in the theater, not stay good for years to come. But my point is that art has always ebbed and flowed, and I'm optimistic that things will change or evolve in the future. And I can't stress enough, this whole time I've been talking about blockbusters and not film as a whole. While the quality of blockbusters, which still can be works of art, has degraded, independent film has been fucking weird and awesome. Did you get Skinnamarink yet? Like it or hate it, it's objectively good that a film like that can still exist. The the winner of the 2023 Best Picture Oscar, had a scene where people put awards up their asses. But the more things get bad for blockbusters and studios, the more that will eventually trickle down. As I mentioned, it's nearly impossible to make a mid-budget film anymore, and that's a problem. If films like No Country for Old Men can't be made, then that's bleak. It's as bleak as, well, No Country for Old Men. And if none of that is good enough, well, another reason this all matters is that, in a way, Hollywood is a perfect microcosm of late-stage capitalism. And that's, it's interesting to observe, and perhaps something we should take note of and be concerned about. It's an entire industry being driven into the ground by unprecedentedly overpaid executives exploiting an underpaid workforce to overproduce an inferior product that everybody hates. It's like a Dr. Seuss book they gave you in hell. A very good comparison is the airlines, another industry that has existed so long that we've seen the worst version of it under capitalism. You may recall that the federal government handed U.S. airlines $54 billion in bailouts after air travel fell over 90% during the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic in 2020. But from 2014 to 2019, those same airlines paid their executives and shareholders over $45 billion in the form of stock buybacks and dividends, plus an additional $750 million in executive salaries. This is the reason why airlines nickel and dime you with baggage fees and upgrades and service charges. They obviously aren't saving any money because they couldn't make it through a single week of the pandemic before they started asking for a $50 billion bailout. And they definitely aren't investing in their workforce because during that same 5-year period of 2014 to 2019, they cut over 10,000 jobs. We did a whole episode you should watch. And like Alien Ant Farm said, it's just like the movies. We pay studio executives money to deliver some of the worst movies we've ever seen to fund their big ol' sloppy shareholder orgies. And when they run out of money because they paid it all to themselves, they'll take even more money from the hands of their workforce by slashing jobs and deleting entire movies and TV shows from existence until they eventually have to get it back from us by starting streaming networks and raising subscription prices and probably getting a taxpayer-funded federal bailout. And that's essentially capitalism in a nutshell. I think that's partly why some people get really irked by what's happening with studio films. Besides just wanting movies to be good, I think it also very perfectly represents the problems of seeking endless growth under late-stage capitalism. It's currently one of the worst industries based around wealthy assholes exploiting labor, and in many cases, showing open contempt towards it. The internet created this potential utopia where art can be free to enjoy, except it's not free to make. And instead of finding a way to balance that equation, corporations just swooped in and turned it into Netflix and Spotify and all the other services that exploit artists in exchange for making a handful of people a lot of money. And everything from music to painting to film has suffered greatly from that. And we should be way more angry about that. And that's saying something because we're already very angry about movies. And much like airlines, I think, or hope, we finally realize that it can't go on like this. And that the weird little money androids pushing these movies through production have violently sucked all the goodwill from us, and now we just can't get excited anymore. It's like getting blown by a vampire. Oh, they should remake Monster Squad. You remember Monster Squad? You know what? Forget everything I just said in this video. Let's just get a Monster Squad movie going. Yeah, okay. Great meeting, everybody. Adjourned.
The Monster Squad. I forgot that even existed. Yeah, like that. The Monster Squad, right? What is that? It's an old 80s movie, isn't it? Yeah, with the Rat Pack, isn't it? Oh my god. Yeah, remind me of it.
You know who to call when you have ghosts. But who do you call when you have monsters?
We're the Monster Squad.
What's a squad? It's like Miami Vice, I think.
They're young and inexperienced.
Naughty virgin.
They're a bit disorganized.
Monsters are not real.
We don't know that, sir.
2,000-year-old dead guys do not get up and walk away by themselves.
But when strange things start happening in town,
There's a monster in my closet.
Ooh, look at that big, scary monster.
What's happening? You wait until the werewolf.
Silver bullet?
they're the only ones ready to do battle.
Something's out there and it's killing people. And if it's monsters, nobody's gonna do a thing about it but us.
Soon the creatures of the night shall rule the world.
Real monsters? Us? Midnight. In the world, remember? Maybe we can be like...
I remember this movie, yeah. Interesting. Alright.
Hello, it's... Hello, news geese. Quack, quack, moo! Take a gander at this goose. This big honkin' news goose, that is. I'm your noose goose coos juice. Here to read the noose, or news if you've already bailed on this bit, as I should have done much, much earlier than right now, but I didn't. Because I'm not a coward. Not like this goose. What a piece of trash. Anyway, news. Here is some news. For you, switchblades. Did you know that they were once, like, really scary? Here's a 1950 issue of Women's Home Companion featuring the article, The Toy That Kills. The author recognizes that even though, quote, a knife to a growing boy is as important as lipstick to a young lady, that a switchblade's chief purpose, as any crook can tell you, is for committing violence. The article was based almost entirely on anecdotal evidence, and for that reason, it got some major things wrong. For example, the author writes that crime statistics everywhere reveal that knives cause far more trouble than guns. Now, that statement is obviously laughably false in 2022, but it probably seemed entirely plausible back in 1950, even though it was verifiably untrue. Nevertheless, this was the catalyst for a national moral panic around switchblades. Congress held hearings, and states banned them. New York State became the first to ban automatic knives in 1954, resulting in the arrests of tens of thousands of New Yorkers, mostly black and Latino, over the subsequent 60 years. The panic permeated pop culture, resulting in a surprising number of very famous film sequences directly involving this awesome knife. It's worth noting that those bodacious movies all came out within a span of 6 years, suggesting that popular media was completely inundated with the idea that switchblades were a pervasive threat. More specifically, that they were the preferred tool of young street toughs threatening civilized suburban areas, which is code for white people. Weird.
Yeah, but like I was a young white tough. I had a switchblade, a chain wallet. We all kept bear mace on the chain wallet, and I carried a flask for about 3 years. I carried a flask. Cool canteen. Zippo lighters. We were punkers, right? With drug addictions and alcohol. We were alcoholics, and we drank Mickey's 40s, and we drank a lot. We played and listened to punk music a lot, and
racist stuff.
And so there was like a whole vibe that came with that. Chain wallets, switchblade, canteen, Zippo lighter, smoking cigarettes, drinking. leather chains. I was mixed kind of raver, so I had kind of a different vibe, a little bit more skater punk raver. But yeah.
But hey, thank goodness we live in a more sophisticated time where we don't lose our turds over meaningless moral panics like this one. Yes, definitely not a thing that happens today. No, sir. You can bet your coward goose on that. Not a problem.
Why do you keep bringing up
Closing
that
the
goose?
book.
Panictastic freaks and where to find them.
Oh, no.
Yeah, okay, sure. Let's talk about moral panics as an episode. This episode. Oh, I already prepared. Perfect. So, just to define them real quick, moral panics are exactly what they sound like. Overblown media events that prey on our fears and insecurities. And though they may have hints of truth to them, they ultimately lean on hyperbole or lies. And the thing about moral panics, both past and present, is that they all have a tendency to follow a very similar script. Though you won't see many people these days freaking out about knives unless they're a Vampire in a Blade sequel, the Switchblade discourse of 70 years ago perfectly mirrors the same arguments you hear today about all kinds of horse shit, be it violent movies or video games or dirty song lyrics. Of course, one thing we know from all the data we purchase from Facebook is that our viewers are really smart and well-read, and so we're probably not going to spend a lot of time explaining why a moral panic is silly. Instead, we want to break down the actual anatomy of them so that we can, perhaps, start avoiding them in the future. That's right, we're going to really dig into moral panics using an intellectual shovel, an incisive pickaxe, and a cerebral switchblade that I just bought on eBay.
Step 1. Take a true story and lie about it.
The first thing to keep in mind is that these panics typically start with something actually real. That real thing can be benign or malignant, a fantasy role-playing game, or a series of kidnappings and murders. The moral panic purveyors love their truth kernels, mind you. It gives a sense of validity to an entirely incorrect and destructive panic. It also makes it harder to argue with these panics because people feel like by recognizing the true parts, they are showing some kind of weakness. The reality is that it's extremely important to understand and acknowledge when a moral panic comes from some morsel of truth, because sometimes that truth is a real thing we should be concerned about, just not in the way these moral panics are trying to spin it. For example, teens and Tide Pods come to mind. Do you remember that panic? It was something the media specifically wanted parents to worry about, and framed as this huge trend. It was often regarded as a deadly challenge. And here's the thing, it is absolutely true that eating Tide Pods is deadly, in that it has killed 8 people in the United States, except none of those people were teenagers. It was a couple of children under the age of 2, and the rest were older people with dementia. And so while there was absolutely a spike in teens poisoning themselves because of this meme, a total of 86 in the beginning of 2018 alone, that number is absolutely nothing compared to Tide Pod incidents among elderly adults who have Alzheimer's or dementia, and way more among children under 5, about 10,500 cases in 2017. You see how, while the headlines are technically using true statements, they completely omit all the context in order to sell a specific narrative. The context being that your boomer parent is more at danger than your shitty teen child. And they are shitty. I mean, just look at them. Awful stuff. Or better yet, here's something real. One established side effect of SSRIs, which are commonly prescribed antidepressants, is a decreased sex drive. That's something true that everyone agrees on. It is acceptable to some people with depression who are seeking treatment, and to others, it's not. But let's just see how far that true thing gets us when we're trying to inspire a new moral panic.
In the same journal in 2020, researchers found that, quote, post-SSRI sexual dysfunction is underrecognized and can be debilitating both psychologically and physically. Well, that's kind of a problem, too. If it steals your sex drive, maybe it's stealing your soul? No, ignore it. Only cult members care. Then last year, researchers in Sweden found that, quote, there may be an increased hazard of violent crime during SSRI medication in a small group of patients. It may exist across age groups and throughout treatment periods, and it possibly persists for up to 12 weeks after treatment discontinuation. So even if you stop taking the drugs, you may be impotent, infertile, violent.
Geez, okay, so I really don't have time to get bogged down debunking every moral panic, but I simply must spare a few seconds to verbally slap Tucker in his waxy little cherub cheeks. First of all, nobody is saying, ignore it. Only cult members care when discussing the sexual side effects of SSRIs. It's a conversation pretty much every patient has with their doctor before they start taking them. Secondly, there's no firmly established link between antidepressants and increases in violence. And there's certainly no link between antidepressants and mass shootings, as Carlson and some elected officials have irresponsibly suggested. That Swedish study cited by Tux Karlby, that's his Hobbit name, specifically says, quote, "We don't claim that SSRIs cause the increased risk we see in our data." They clearly state that the disorders that SSRIs treat, such as depression, are driving the association. The researchers also cite the rarity of violent crimes in Sweden as a reason that it might be tough to extrapolate too much based on the data. Remember, Sweden has significantly lower rates of violent crime than the US, probably because they're all too busy listening to ABBA, so increases from small numbers are going to be more pronounced than they would in a place where violent crime is higher. You simply can't start with antidepressants lower your sex drive, which is true for some people, and then go right into they turn you into murderers. That's just not true, my creepy dude. And it's incredibly disingenuous and creates a real-world stigma that impacts the very people on whose behalf you're manufacturing your outrage. And that kind of disingenuous twisting is the first step in any moral panic. At some point, somebody has to fib or stretch the truth. Probably some teen, am I right? Terrible humans. Don't tell them I said that. But that 40-second clip is duplicated with different topics every night on Twacker's show, or some other also bad show, or in talking points across Twitter, or in your racist Gam's Facebook feed. Compare it to late 2018, when a group of several thousand migrants from Central America approached the US border seeking asylum. Many of these migrants said they were fleeing persecution or threats from criminal gangs in countries like Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. These were desperate people, many of them families with children, taking a huge risk while undertaking an arduous 2,700-mile journey to get to the US. And that part is all true. Nobody is disputing it. But the Trump administration and conservative personalities painted a very different picture of what was happening, extrapolating the real story into a worst-case scenario, casting the migrants as a serious and even existential threat to honest, hard-working Americans, which, once more, is code for white people.
General Terrence O'Shaughnessy, who is the head of the U.S. Northern Command, said, quote, "This caravan is different than what we've seen in the past. What we have seen is clearly an organization at a higher level than we have seen before. We've seen violence coming out of the caravan, and we have seen as they pass other international borders, we've seen them behave in a nature that we have not seen in the past."
So to restate, the caravan is in fact heavily male and highly dangerous. When the Mexican ambassador says that to public radio, what you're looking at, obviously, is racism, more right-wingery. Just kidding. What we're actually seeing is relentless dishonesty from the very people who are paid to inform us.
Your views on immigration will have zero impact and zero influence on a House dominated by Democrats who want to replace you, the American voters, with newly amnestied citizens and an ever-increasing number of chain migrants.
Those clips make it very clear what the argument is and who the supposed victims are. And I don't know, it feels like maybe promoting the racist Great Replacement theory to inspire panic in your white conservative audience is a way more likely inspiration for mass shootings than f***ing Zoloft. Remember, the entire argument here is based on one piece of evidence, that thousands of people from Central America wanted to immigrate to the United States, literally walking thousands of miles to escape violence, uninhabitable conditions, and extreme poverty. Never mind that in the year 2000, there were far more migrants moving unchecked through the southern border, and that the percentage of single men crossing, as opposed to families including children, was significantly higher back then. But of course, we all know why lies like these get by, right? It's a word, and it starts with an R, and it ends with an ism. And this is where step 2 comes into play. which is the use of scornful, othering language that casts a typically marginalized or easily feared group of people as the villain and frames the panic as a good versus evil, us versus them fight. We love our little teams, don't we, folks?
Step 2. Othering language.
Before we dig into the language specifically, we've got to acknowledge the overarching role that the concept of the other plays in moral panics. Stanley Cohen, the criminologist who coined the term, defined a moral panic as when a condition, episode, person, or group of persons emerges to become defined as a threat to societal values and interests. In his 1972 book, Folk Devils and Moral Panics, he details a moral panic that overtook Britain in the 1960s, involving two subcultures of young people, the mods and the rockers. And while it is extremely British to be frightened of two groups that sound like charming roller derby teams, here in America, we're currently terrified of books that confirm the existence of gay people, and M&Ms that aren't sexy enough. So whomst are we to judge? In brief, these mods and rockers held a series of parties over holiday weekends, getting into some fights and initiating minor acts of vandalism. Over time, the media exaggerated the threat these groups posed to regular people and their families, or as Cohen said, to societal values and interests. And this is the key thing to understand. There are no moral panics about an asteroid hitting the Earth, or hurricanes, astracanes, hurricoids, humble sharknadoes, or any other such force majeure. It's always groups of people who are seen as the threat, people who are outside of what those in power consider the cultural norms. Sometimes that's just disgusting teenagers. Other times it's a fucking skin color. But the panic can only happen if there's a visible enemy, in the form of a group of people who are othered and separated from the status quo. President Donald January Trump called the migrant caravan an invasion and described many people in the group as gang members without citing any evidence to back up those claims. He pretty much ran on the othering of immigrants. Similarly, the modern right wing has attempted to connect basically the entire LGBTQ community with pedophilia by labeling them groomers, a move dangerously similar to the child safety paranoia of the Satanic Panic. You know, that time conservatives thought fantasy improv theater with dice was a recruitment tool of the literal devil. Heck, even Tipper Gore labeled a group of musical artists the Filthy 15 when she was railing against song lyrics she didn't like in the 1980s. Those songs were by artists that included Madonna, Prince, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, and Cyndi Lauper. And as you might have noticed, none of those managed to bring about the collapse of society. Black Sabbath had already been recording music for nearly 2 decades by the time Tipper singled them out. In fairness, there's still time for them to bring about a nuclear apocalypse or some such, and honestly, anything can happen at this point. Good luck to Black Sabbath. There is a reason Cohen's book about moral panic starts with folk devils. It isn't about a disagreement or a political difference with another group. It's the idea that one group is fundamentally less valuable than the other, and thus less human. The panicked group is civilized, while the scary others are not. The late researcher Amanda Roloff summarized the civilizing process as described by sociologist Norbert Elias as, quote, the process whereby one group of people come to see themselves as more civilized than another group of people, thereby enabling these self-identified civilized people to commit acts that at other times would be seen as uncivilized. In other words, convincing yourself and your followers that you are more civilized than your enemies provides an extremely effective excuse to do some pretty f***ed up things. We see this every time a transgender person or someone mistaken for a transgender person is harassed in a public restroom. We see it every time people are harassed for not speaking English in public, and we see it every time an honest goose tries to buy a switchblade. The othering language allows the harassers to feel justified in their actions. It's a tool of dehumanization. It's the same reason Dwayne Johnson called people jabronis before rock bottoming them into the center of the earth. He wants us to clap, not boo. This is, of course, what makes the language often contradictory. A targeted group can be both intrusive and exclusive. Another can be lazy and inert, but also aggressive and pushy. The enemy has to be both laughably weak and indescribably powerful at the same time. It's the language of fascism. Antifa is a bunch of soy boys who are dangerously violent. And you, of course, probably know one of the best examples of this.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
The contradiction in language, often in the same breath, kind of gives the whole game away. Whatever the panic is supposed to be about isn't really what it's about. The only goal is to demonize a group of people. Donald Jobinet Trump III didn't cite a bunch of charts and data to back up any of his rhetoric. He merely shambled onto a global stage and just started saying shit. Contradictory and dehumanizing shit, wholly untethered from reality. And while that's f***ed up, there is, of course, a second component there. It's not enough to make these claims. Someone also has to amplify them. But before we do that, we need to amplify these ads! Oh boy, I hope one of them is for that ball shaver that looks like a switchblade. Go, I hope! Oh boy, I am tired. Every day I work up a sweat. Then I bottle that sweat and go to my local mall and put the sweat in the big fountain. Soon the fountain will be all my sweat, and I will have won. It's important to eat right when you're working up a sweat like this, which is why I drink, far too quickly, AG1 by Athletic Greens. They are the category-leading superfood product designed to take all the vitamins you normally have in a rounded diet or a bunch of pills and put it all into a single drink. It's like the future, a future of sweat fountains and liquid nutrition. Watch as I gobble the quaff like a concrete statue eating my skin juice. It tastes good. You're just not supposed to chug it like that. So, just don't chug it. It's good juice though, not like the flesh water in which I've been collecting and distributing for the last 8 years. Just one tasty scoop of AG1 contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients. It's vegan, keto, paleo, and only has a single gram of sugar. If you take a lot of vitamins, you should check it out. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you an immune-supporting free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase if you visit athleticgreens.com/more news today. Again, simply visit athleticgreens.com/more news to take control of your health and give AG1 a try. Drink it and sweat it out. Then give that sweat to the world. Then you win. Like I won. Okay, neat, we're back. We were talking about the use of othering language by bad actors, sorry Dwayne, surrounding these moral panics. But this language is, of course, tolerated and spread, often by some sort of accomplice hijacking the attention that the panic creates. And while technically that could be just like a dude on a bike with a bullhorn, spreading panic is often way more efficient when you have access to some kind of media conglomerate. Plus, everyone threw rocks at me and I fell off the bike.
Step 3, media exacerbation.
Any burgeoning moral panic might fizzle out and die were it not for a media ecosystem willing to carry its water. The media might sound like a boogeyman since it's such a broad and generic term, but when talking about moral panics, it's not enough to just say Fox News or grifting pundits. Giving validation to and aggravating the severity of moral panics really is a media-wide problem. Sure, right-wing media is a huge part of it, but news magazines, local news, and even narrative content play a key role. After all, there was no News Corps back when 60s Britons were getting their dodgy old knickers in a twist over the mods and rockers, eh? Regret doing that voice. But I mean, Rupert Murdoch was he was a sprightly young, he was 30-year-old newspaper tycoon at the time. Good God, that guy's old. Oh my goodness. Old man. The point is, the game the media plays with moral panics has been consistent for decades. The rage clicks of the present were the Newsweek subscriptions of eras past. The poster child for modern, media-inspired freakouts is arguably Dungeons & Dragons, a key target in what later came to be known as the Satanic Panic.
Mary Towie was killed by 2 friends, Ron Adcox and Darren Molitor. The crucial point is, can a game create psychosis, or is someone like Darren Molitor an accident waiting to happen, with or without the game?
But many grieving parents believed there was a connection. Pat Pulling's teenage son committed suicide, and she spoke publicly, claiming that his game playing contributed to his death.
These children not only begin to have violent dreams or violent thoughts or negative, depressing type things, they become very much a part of this character.
The kernel of truth here was that a game exists. And at the time, that game was played primarily by people perceived as social outcasts. Nerds, geeks, book f***ers, etc. And a few people who played that game in the 1980s died under tragic circumstances. The same way a small portion of all the people who watch football will succumb to alcoholism or Velveeta-related heart disease or just, unrelated tragic accidents. Correlation doesn't equal causation, yada yada, you get it. But after one college student disappeared in 1979, a private investigator hired by his parents concluded that the student's enjoyment of Dungeons and Dragons was somehow involved. Even though the student had a history of depression and drug abuse, and his enjoyment of tabletop gaming was never shown to be a factor in his disappearance and suicide, that story generated a surprising amount of breathless media attention. And because of all that attention casting Dungeons and Dragons as a dangerous underground movement instead of fantasy Little League for indoor kids, sales of the game shot up, which generated more media attention, suggesting that the concern from frightened religious parents about their children falling prey to satanic cults was warranted. Also, that private investigator, who was totally wrong, wanted to capitalize on his wrongness, so he wrote a book about the whole thing. By the way, that same private detective would go on to write an entire book claiming that O.J. Simpson's son actually murdered Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman because he's just a guy with some theories and lies who makes shit up to sell books. Because while creating the panic was done with negative intent designed to vilify an entire group of people, spreading it is often done with no agenda whatsoever beyond making that sweet, sweet paper. Sure, news organizations will absolutely highlight and amplify stories that align with their worldview, or advance their own interests, or the government's interests, but sometimes it's just plain laziness, or a ratings chase. One good example would be media coverage of crime rates since early in the pandemic. As we discussed in previous episodes, there's been a real disconnect between the reality that murder rates increased while other violent crimes decreased, and what the media is saying. Rising murder rates are of concern to people, which fuels a feedback loop of journalists writing about them. But then you'd think the reporting would have a duty to reference that murder rates are still significantly lower than they were decades ago, and to include that information somewhere above the 16th paragraph of an article. But of course, that's less interesting. And even when crime was a problem, like New York in the 1970s, rarely did the media explain the economic problems and mob involvement that led to that situation. Instead, the narrative was heavily reliant on street thugs and gangs, which absolutely were also a problem, but it's not like they all just showed up one day. There's far more nuance than a bunch of warriors types invading the streets. However, this is what the media, and then of course Hollywood, glommed onto, sometimes resulting in entire film series devoted to shooting brown people. Oh yeah, you shoot that guy in the back, you hero of the film, you. This is also how we get movies like the Tom Hanks alarmist classic Mazes and Monsters, and the heavy metal / babysitting cautionary tale The Gate. Narrative films pick up what the news media is putting down, and once you're hearing about the satanic panic in Hollywood movies as well as every night on the 7 o'clock news, it is as real as Santa Claus, who is fake, but paradoxically also real enough to secure lucrative soda endorsement deals. Remember all those Switchblade films from earlier? Those narrative films didn't need to make an argument or justify their use of knife-wielding street toughs. They were just true things that existed. Unalterable truths that keep rattling around our brains and thus distort our thinking. It's called the availability heuristic. For example, around 6 deaths in the US every year are attributed to venomous snakes and lizards. But If each of those 6 was a national news story, you'd probably be looking over your shoulder for gun-toting salamanders everywhere you went. And we would make competing films where people have shootouts with giant reptiles, which, saying it out loud, sounds awesome. Snake guns, lizard shooty story. I'm not a title guy, sorry. This is what happened in the 1990s with the panic over frivolous lawsuits. Individual silly lawsuits were highlighted by corporate groups seeking to clamp down on litigation against them, and the media played along. The most famous example concerns 79-year-old Stella Liebeck. In 1992, she was fixing her coffee between her legs while in the parking lot of McDonald's when she spilled some on herself, resulting in third-degree burns across 6% of her body and other burns over 1/6 of her body. The burns were so severe, she was in the hospital for 8 days and had to get skin grafts. That's the word. Too fucking hot. As in roughly 180 degrees. Like, are you kidding me? Why should any liquid intended for human consumption ever be kept at a temperature sufficient to literally melt the flesh from your body? Are you hunting demons with that coffee? Are you going to throw it into Harvey Dent's face to score a mistrial for Boss Maroney? The only food item that should be that hot are McDonald's apple pies. Liebeck even admitted the spill was her fault, but insisted that the temperature of the coffee was unreasonable and unsafe. She was only initially seeking $20,000 to pay for her medical expenses. But because McDonald's had received at least 700 reports of coffee burns over the previous decade, a jury decided to send a message and awarded her $160,000 in compensatory damages and $2.7 million in punitive damages. It was a classic story of a corporation cutting corners, resulting in harm caused to their customers. At least, that's how it should have been reported.
The report aired on more than a dozen national broadcasts and twice as many local news shows. The condensed telling of the story created its own version of the truth. Instead of pointing out she spilled the coffee in the passenger seat of a parked car, this was the new narrative.
It seems she was holding a cup between her legs while driving.
Clamped it between her legs, drove down the street, spilled it, burned herself, sued McDonald's, and collected.
A woman was awarded $2.9 million in a lawsuit against McDonald's. She spilled hot coffee on her lap while sitting in her car and claimed it was too hot. Every day we hear about another outrageous lawsuit. Who pays? You do. Tell the legislature we can't afford another $1 million cup of coffee.
Ha 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 ha! Joke's on you, 79-year-old woman who had to get skin grafts. Honka honka, don't trip over this banana peel, you klutz! It's like people will sue over anything these days, is apparently the lesson from all of that. And once that kind of narrative gets established, it's just out there in the world. It's just a thing that exists now. Everyone knows that frivolous lawsuits are a major blight on society, right? It's now something that doesn't need to be backed up with evidence and can simply be commented on by our popular sitcoms.
Sorry, are you kidding? You did me the biggest favor of my life. I spoke to a lawyer. We're suing for millions. Suing? What for? The coffee was too hot. It's supposed to be hot. Not that hot.
Yeah, Kramer's right. It wasn't supposed to be that hot. You ever notice coffee? Anyway, even though this particular story has been revisited in the years since to try and set the record straight.
He said it right.
None of that does.
Not that hot. No, not that hot. No, and he's right. Not that hot. No. There's no reasonable reason why a poor lady buying a coffee from McDonald's should experience basically torture, you know? And you know how those cups are. They spill coffee all over you. Those cups sucked. I remember when they finally changed them, I was like 27 or something. But those cups sucked. They would spill all over you when you were a kid. People had terrible, shitty cars. This is why car washes did so well. I used to work at the car wash because kids would just tear the cars apart because the traffic was always so bad. You'd be eating like crappy McDonald's food in the car, and all the cups were bad, so you would spill it all over the car. After a couple of years, if you had kids at all, the car was just filthy. I don't know where it is I'm trying to do. They seem to be... Oh yeah, that's in Shattered Mountain, is it? So, where in Shattered Mountain, though? You're not, like, giving me like an indication or anything. Like, where in Shattered Mountain? What are we talking about here? I don't know. Can I abandon this one? But no. I want to reset it, yeah. Yeah, reset it. I'll go back there and just find it. Yeah, where is that? That's like up there? Oh, okay. There, that's what I had to do? That's all I had to do. Okay, I was like, why is this quest broken now? Stupid.
As much good for Stella Liebeck, who was permanently disfigured from the coffee and turned into a nationwide...
See, like when he says, not that hot, it's funny, but I mean, it's true. Look at what they had to do to this poor lady. Look at the burns she got from coffee.
Laughing.
Poor lady.
Doc. She died in 2004 before the media caught up and told the truth about her story. She also didn't live long enough to see the end of the Stella Awards, created by a syndicated columnist who made a nice little living writing about so-called frivolous lawsuits until he shut it down in 2012. But don't worry, he's still selling the book. Again, the truth to all this was obvious to anyone who was really paying attention or wanted to do the research. That reporter we showed earlier said Liebeck held the coffee cup between her legs while driving, which was false. She wasn't driving. This was known at the time, and many outlets got it right. And sure, that's a comparatively minor mistake, right? We've made them ourselves, like that time we said the Iraq War was started by President Urkel. Not sure how we screwed that one up, but the point is that once a lie is casually repeated enough times by the media, it becomes as good as fact to the public. And this is predictably, tragically, where we talk about social media and how it's now just so much easier to spread this kind of lie. Take the recent groomer panic that has right-wingers all bunched up in their grundles about supposed pedophilia and out-of-control wokeness in Disney cartoons and public schools. The Libs of TikTok account, which we have talked about before, takes advantage of the fact that moral panics usually begin with factual events before escalating to absurd gibber fibs. In this case, sometimes gay or bi or trans teachers or caregivers will talk to students about their identity. If anyone sits and really thinks about this, it's not a big deal at all. There's no formal instruction going on about gender identity or sexuality with young kids, and if you watch the videos posted by the account, it's typically just a teacher or caregiver talking about identity in a totally reasonable way. The same way you might explain to a child why someone's skin color is different from theirs. But Libs of TikTok's audience hates queer people. So once they establish the true story of some teachers speaking to their students about gender identity, they begin to build on that story with manufactured bullshit designed to whip people up into a sudsy panic. A real froth fest, the Great British Hate-Off, and the people buying into the panic are none the wiser, because it confirms their prejudice. They're disinclined to verify whether or not it's actually true. That was the case when the account promoted blatantly false information about Boston Children's Hospital, including the lie that the hospital gives hysterectomies to young girls. Those lies resulted in threats against the hospital and their staff. It's also the case in this other Libs of TikTok post where, quote, it was revealed that a Michigan school placed litter boxes in the bathroom for students that identify as cats. Spoiler alert for this video, that was not revealed at all.
And so yesterday I heard that at least one of our schools in our town has in one of the unisex bathrooms, a litter box for the kids that identify as cats. And I am really disturbed by that. And I will do some more investigation on that. I know it's going on nationwide. I know it is. It's part of the agenda that's being pushed. I don't even want to understand it.
Oh, did you do your investigating? Did you buy a super sleuth spy kit and get out the little magnifying glass and walk around a public school like you're fucking Inspector Gadget? No, you didn't. Because if you had, you would have found that nobody is putting litter boxes in student bathrooms. That's not a thing, nor has it ever been a thing. It has never claimed membership to thinghood. But once you've been in frothing moral panic mode for months, you have to keep upping the ante with your examples.
I know, fucking
this lie
stupid-ass
would
attack
go on to
artist
spread on
bullshit.
the Facebook group Protect Nebraska Children, force an Iowa superintendent to say that it wasn't happening, led a Nebraska state senator to apologize for further spreading the rumor himself, and forced local newspapers to keep having to print fact checks about it months later. It's become that identical party anecdote that everyone repeats. My cousin knew a kid who ate Pop Rocks and soda and exploded. But nobody stops to think about how illogical and silly it is. An urban legend, or rather, a Roganism.
Now, I could see, like, Pop Rocks and perhaps hydrogen peroxide causing a kid's stomach to get very sick. Or something like that. And maybe they mixed the wrong things. I could see that.
Ready for this? My friend, his wife, is a school teacher. And
I can't stand the way Joe Rogan talks.
Works at a school that had to install a litter box in the girls'
It sounds so Valley Girl.
Because there is a girl who's a furry.
In fairness, he later clarified that by saying my friend's wife, he actually meant a thing I read on the internet while high and then pretended I was personally connected to because perhaps I shouldn't be as prominent of a media figure as I am, or at the very least be more discerning, like an ounce more discerning. It's not a direct quote. Anyway, the right wing's groomer spectacle has whipped people up for months with outrage based on non-stories and fake stories. It's resulted in real-world harm in the form of harassment and death threats and regressive bills being proposed and passed across the country. Media of both the news and social variety have perpetuated this cycle, and instead of having any reasonable discussion about what and when children should be taught about sexuality and gender identity, people are believing that teachers are sexualizing children in preschool and that students are literally shitting in litter boxes. By the way, I lied when I said that nobody's putting litter boxes in schools. They actually are doing that as emergency toilets in the event of a school shooting. What a perfect example of how moral panics completely divert from the actual conversation. So it's time to talk about why this all matters. I mean, of course it matters, but I want to talk about the very real consequences and motivation for these bullshit frenzies, the actual moral panic we need to worry about here. And in classic media tradition, I won't tell you what that is until after these ads!
Hey, it's Katie Stoll. You know, when I'm not working in the news mines, I run a small side business selling chemicals to taxidermists. You know, stuff like glycerin, bird feet injection fluid, fake eyes. Don't worry about where I get them from. The point is that I do a lot of mailing, and if you do a lot of business mailing, you should probably check out Stamps.com. For more than 20 years, Stamps.com has been indispensable for over 1 million businesses. All you need is a computer and a printer, and your business can mail out any package anywhere at any time. No lines, no traffic, no weird looks when your packages smell like tanning fluids. Plus, you get great discounts on UPS and USPS rates. The holidays are a busy time for any business. Lord knows I can't keep my skull whitening kit on the shelves, just flying off of them. Stamps.com will help you save time and money no matter if you're a small company or a big warehouse sending out paychecks. So this holiday season, trade late nights for silent nights and get started with Stamps.com today. Sign up with promo code MORENEWS for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click the little microphone guy at the top of the page and enter code MORENEWS. And if you need any like stop rot, hit me up. Don't worry where I get it from.
Hey, we're back. And to recap a lot of what we've said so far would take a moment. So we will. Everything we're talking about, these moral panics, are often really easy to spot after the fact. or even during the fact. The migrant caravans didn't take over America or replace all of its white people. Studies have never reliably shown that video games inspire real-world violence. Comic books are not responsible for teenagers acting like teenagers. The GOP banning books is far more of a threat to free speech than students walking out of a lecture. Teaching white children about the history of racism in the US is not forcing them to feel perpetually ashamed. Almost nobody of teen age was eating Tide Pods. Kidnappings of children by strangers are pretty rare. There are basically no actual Satanists, and the only Satanists that do exist are either harmless edgelords or atheists highlighting religious hypocrisy and shoplifting, even if it is on the rise, which there's not a ton of great data to suggest that it is not some kind of national crisis. So, if you and I all know this already, how does this keep happening? If panics can be quickly identified, how do they get so out of hand? There's a few reasons, but what sticks out is that once these moral panics begin, a lot of people simply don't want them to stop for, let's call it, reasons.
Step 4. The right people are victimized.
To sum it up, modern moral panics are no longer anomalies, but tools being used specifically to drive an agenda. They were also that in the past, except the process has been so streamlined that they're now easily and quickly wielded like weapons.
What?
Specifically, and perhaps exclusively, from one side of the political spectrum. In his 2004 book, What's the Matter with Kansas?, historian Thomas Frank argues that since political debates have become so framed around hot-button culture war issues, low and middle-income rural Americans regularly vote against their best economic interests. He details how Democrats ceded this ground a long time ago to focus more on affluent professionals and rarely make the populist case that their economic policies would actually improve the lives of lower-income rural people. In other words, the deck is currently stacked against dispelling moral panics because they are now the primary issues of our political discourse, specifically as a distraction. Because the most frustrating thing about most modern moral panics, critical race theory, cancel culture, drag shows, the incivility of protesting outside someone's house, is that the most vocal people know it's bullshit. Josh Hawley doesn't really think that Disney is a woke corporation. He knows very well that Disney would feed 1 out of every 10 kids riding the Matterhorn to the Yeti if it would boost their quarterly profits. He just doesn't care. It's convenient for him to have a tangible enemy in his woke panic, so he can pretend it's not just for spite over Disney's eventual denouncement of the Don't Say Gay bill and pulling of some of its political donations. They're not even trying to hide it. Here is conservative activist Christopher Rufo admitting that the attack on critical race theory was just a branding exercise in order to meet the right's political ends. It's a smokescreen, a banana peel in the political game of Mario Kart. Because if you have people up in arms about pronouns or immigrants, then they won't notice when you're completely f***ing them over.
You've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
What?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Since you are the president of the National Women's Law Center, I was hoping that you could define what a woman is.
It's not her fault that all these people are having gender issues.
Well, as the president of the National Women's Law Center, you can imagine I say woman a lot in my day job.
Okay, so I'm just asking for the definition.
Jesus Christ.
So what I'll tell you is I am a woman. That's how I identify.
Okay.
But I wonder, however, if in part the reason that you're asking a question is that you're trying to suggest that people who
I am
don't
simply asking the
identify as
question,
women
and I
can't
simply
be
want an
pregnant.
answer.
And so I think it's actually really important to be very clear here that there are people who identify as non-binary. I think about 5% of young
We're not
people
going to go there. I was hoping maybe
can
you would.
be
I was
pregnant.
hoping that maybe you would say something that maybe we learned in high school biology that has to do with X and Y chromosomes. but which define male and female, but I guess we're not going to get there.
Cool, yeah, score those culture war points, you weird ghouls. That's from back in July, when congressional committees heard testimony about the impact of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Pretty weird that in this congressional hearing concerning what they claim to be protecting human life, which they claim to be really invested in, they also want to stop everything to do a Dave Chappelle-style Tight 5. Feels very unserious and perhaps a distraction from how they are actively taking away the rights of Americans. The same goes with the panic over protesting outside of the homes of Supreme Court justices. Supreme Court justices are public figures, holding the highest seat of authority in the land. It's totally reasonable for people to gather outside their homes to peacefully protest their authoritarian decisions. But the panic over protesting at justices' homes, of course, diverts attention from the actually really bad thing going on and directs it towards something that generates bipartisan anger. In this case, disrupting the sanctity of the suburbs. That's something both parties can get nice and riled up about, enough to take immediate action. We need to protect those extremely powerful millionaires, or else they might actually hear some negative feedback about their decisions. See, it's a really effective system, because even if we know that it's bullshit, the media has to then spend a lot of effort talking about why it's bullshit. It creates a fact-checking ecosystem, and so even when the misinformation is obvious, it still accomplishes its goal of distracting everyone. If you take a dump in the middle of a Walmart, someone has to clean it up. No matter how silly you look, you have successfully used up resources that could have been spent elsewhere. Can you even imagine a productive news cycle covering parents at school board meetings, talking about how schools in poorer neighborhoods get far less money per student than those in wealthier neighborhoods? Seems like it would make a lot more sense to make that the discussion about the state of education in the United States instead of whether or not a classroom mask mandate counts as child abuse. That's one of our favorite things to do these days. Be outraged about child abuse as a way of distracting or even pushing actual child abuse. Wild shit like inspecting teen genitals as a result of trans panic, talking about drag shows as a danger to kids as opposed to the supremely f***ed up child beauty pageants that continue to exist. Hey, remember when Netflix made a movie about how the sexualization of preteen girls is bad, and everyone accused it of sexualizing girls without actually watching the film? What a perfect example of this. There are so many real problems in the world, and these panics seem perfectly designed to distract from all of them. But of course, a moral panic's use as a distraction is just a bonus feature. The main course, and the reason it's so hard to break this cycle, is that the people they ultimately hurt are the exact people the purveyors want to see hurt.
No other state passed more laws that were anti-LGBTQ than Tennessee, and it appears the state is on track to keep going when the new session starts in January, thanks to a new bill that would criminalize drag shows in public places.
Never mind the fact that there's been absolutely no epidemic or even any evidence of drag queens molesting or grooming kids. That's something you can easily look into and disprove right now. It's certainly something history will confirm when it looks back at this era as a kind of weird Jim Crow for LGBTQ people. But of course, it doesn't matter if it's true, because the moral panic, in this case drag shows, will victimize the right people. People deemed morally wrong by the people pushing the lie. It doesn't matter that the panic isn't real, because for them, the ends justify the means. And so here we see a completely fabricated moral panic used to justify actual laws designed to remove people's human rights. That is, of course, the actual thing we should be upset about. And it happens way more often than it should. For instance, remember all the bullshit over the McDonald's coffee lawsuit? That created a real scare over lawsuits, which in turn created real laws passed 2 or more decades ago that are still on the books today. A 2016 poll found that 87% of voters continue to believe
why do you always
there
put so many
too
mobs on
lawsuits
me?
filed in America,
Fucking
even though the
stupid.
number
It's
of
always like
annual
7
lawsuits
fucking
has steadily
mobs.
declined, and Republicans still promote legislation aimed at shielding businesses from liability. It's become harder and more cost prohibitive for people with real grievances to sue corporations. The frivolous lawsuit moral panic worked, aided by the media and hundreds of millions of dollars spent by industry groups and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. You don't regularly hear about satanic panic anymore, and yet the fear of Satanists is still a running theme in American politics. It inspired fucking QAnon and led a whole bunch of people to believe that 1 million American children had been kidnapped and sold into sex slavery. Video games are still regularly blamed for incidents of teen violence, and 37% of Americans believe violent movies and video games are a cause of mass shootings. Police get millions in new funding every time there's a new crime scare, and a bunch of states still have goddamn switchblade laws as though the country were regularly besieged by greaser bullies from Stephen King movies instead of radicalized right-wing terrorists buying...
You know, I had a friend named Adam, who I haven't spoken to in 27 years. I don't even really remember him very well. He's, you know, it's like an acquaintance, let's say. He was a friend, though. I met him. I liked him. He was, you know, he was a good kid. I remember him fondly. But I remember something that stuck out. He was on probation for 3 years, and they busted him with a knuckle duster that had blades on the grip, right? Like a knuckle duster, right? It's like a bladed. What do they call those? You know, bladed knuckles. They're like bladed knuckles, and they busted him for a fucking like a crazy weapon charge when he was like 18. They're like, oh, you're a man now, so we're gonna fuck you for 3 years fucking weapons charge, and you have to go to federal prison and shit for a fucking knuckle duster in his glove compartment box. And I remember the 3 years and how really terrible it was for his life. I remember that stuff. I remember being around him and it'd be like, oh man, that's what you did? All you had was a knuckle duster? And they fucked you for 3 years in federal prison? Yeah, I was an adult. I caught a weapons charge. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my god. And you hear about this stuff, but you never really believe that it's happening, you know? Trying to get better at fucking rapier. It's actually a really hard weapon, you know? God damn it, you just get to hit me, huh? You dick.
AR-15s at Walmart. And while we can't do anything about past examples, it's pretty gosh darn and dang important to think about what we can do about the moral panics happening right now. So it's time to see every piece of a moral panic. The lies, the othering, and the media exacerbation, all in one clip.
I don't think we have exact numbers, but if we're talking about the drugs, it's, I mean, millions.
You're talking about hormone blockers?
Yeah.
Millions of kids have been on hormone blockers? Really?
I'm sure someone's going to fact check me on this, but my guess is that we're into the millions now at this point. Yeah, that would be my guess. I can say, for double mastectomies, I read a report recently that there were over 1,000 done between 2016 and 2019, and when you compare that to how many were done between, you know,
look how much damage I take
2008 and
instantly.
2015, it's just it's a massive increase, and over 1,000 girls had gender affirming double mastectomies in that time frame.
And when you say girls, you're talking about prepubescent,
right? Minors, and that's just up until 2019, and then we know that there's been this exponential increase with all this stuff year over year. So it's a lot. It's too many.
Oh my God!
Having this happen to one kid is way too many. It's a lot more than that.
Oh God! It says over the last 5 years, there were at least 4,780 adolescents who started puberty blockers and had a prior gender dysphoria diagnosis.
Get out of it. Yep, gender
kind of undercounted, but
that would be a big undercounting.
Less than 1,000 people a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess, you know, hundreds of thousands at this, but I could be wrong.
Oh my God!
Sounds great.
Yeah.
That's Daily Wire Thunder Chud Matt Walsh spitting absolute garbage about trans people on one of the largest talk shows in America. He begins by taking the truth that a few thousand adolescents started puberty blockers between 2017 and 2021, lying about it, and making it millions of kids instead. When he was caught in that giant lie, he just sort of shrugs it off, because he's not actually interested in the facts. He also says that he read a study saying there was an explosion of kids being given mastectomies from 2016 to 2019. Joe qualifies it by asking if he means prepubescent girls, and Matt yes-ands him without either of them realizing that you can't get a mastectomy without, you know, breasts. He doesn't cite a specific study, but he's probably talking about this one, reported about here in the totally credible Christian broadcasting network under FaithWire. But even in that pretty f***ing dubious article, they recognize that the average age for these surgeries were done on 17-year-olds. And the increase between 2016 to 2019 is the difference between 100 and 489 procedures. The total being 1,130 chest reconstruction surgeries in that 3-year span. When you actually look at the numbers given, it's not really an epidemic. Matt Walsh probably knows that, which is why he has to act like any number is too many. His beliefs being, I guess, that if you're a teenager, you shouldn't have surgery done on your private areas. So one imagines that he's equally upset that in 2020, a total of 3,200 18-year-olds got breast implants, or that another 4,700 teenagers between 13 to 19 had reduction surgery. Does that also bother him? Why do I feel like he doesn't care about those numbers? Why do I feel like the only thing he wants to portray as a big scary epidemic is that which relates to trans people? But because he can't just say, I hate trans people, he needs to frame it as some kind of health issue or about the decision to change one's body, even though he certainly doesn't give a shit about all the other ways people do that every damn day. There's a moment in this conversation that's really telling, and it speaks to what Matt really thinks.
Look, if you're an adult and you want to do that, and you understand who you are and what you are, and this is how you feel you should progress,
I'm fine.
You're an adult.
Yep.
This is a free country. You should be able to do whatever you want.
Yep.
But when you're talking about doing that to children, the fact that so many people are on board and so many people are angry, if you have, like, people are going to be angry at us that we're having these conversations.
Yep.
Yeah, they will be. And I also, I actually think that that this shouldn't be happening to.
Hey Matt, finish that sentence. You actually think that this, as in gender-affirming care, shouldn't be happening to whom? Considering what Rogan said, it sure seems like he was going to say that he doesn't think adults should have this care either, because he's just a bigot who wants to inflict his will on everyone using lies to scare people into thinking there's an epidemic to be concerned about. A perpetuation of a moral panic. The trans panic that we will inevitably look back on as being silly. Joe Rogan is the media component. He expresses confusion as to why the conversation they're having is perceived as bad, and why people are supporting procedures done on minors, because what Matt has disingenuously omitted from the conversation is that these are teenagers, often older ones, and not prepubescent kids.
Over 1,000 girls had gender-affirming double mastectomies in that time frame.
And when you say girls, you're talking about prepubescent?
Right. Minors.
It's a really solid example of everything we've talked about. He took a real fact, the rise in gender-affirming care, and then twisted it to seem way more widespread and insidious than it was, even trying to lie about the numbers before getting caught. He fudged the age group being talked about to make it seem more outrageous, and omitted all of the context, like how we're talking about people making these decisions with their doctors. People he couldn't possibly know the lives of. And Joe Rogan, while doing some fact-checking, ultimately just shrugs it off and continues to give him a podium. Walsh knows what he's doing. He has an agenda, a really hateful one at that. And apologies, but I'm going to have to read 2 of his tweets to demonstrate this. Tweets specific to those abortion hearings, which read, "These hearings on abortion are instructive. The liberal witnesses have refused to condemn infanticide, refused to define the word woman, and claimed that men can get pregnant. We cannot share a country with these people. There can be no unity. They are lunatics and monsters." And then, "I don't respect them. I have nothing in common with them. I detest everything they believe and stand for. They feel the same about me. We simply cannot go on.
I'm about to be done with Rapier and Spear.
Man.
And I'm kind of sick of Spear. I don't really, like, I love Spear, but I've played it too much. I'm kind of bored with it. And I don't really want to use it. I should be using a different weapon like musket now, but I won't get Spear done unless I do, you know? It's fucking annoying. Maybe I should leave Spear and Bow for its own set and don a musket now. But I mean, that means going back to town real quick. I mean, that's not that much of a ride, though, getting back here. I died again. It's particularly, I mean, the Spear is good. I keep thinking like Rapier can main them, but Rapier is a support weapon basically for fucking musket, and it doesn't really belong with Spear, but it has a really good mobility to it that I want to learn. It might be really good with like a fucking. I see it, I start to just get cornered, and fuck, dude, it's so annoying. Fuck these guys. Get out. I aggroed a bunch more. No. Oh my god. Why so many mobs in this in the same place? It's just the same. And 3 of them are just ranging full blown. Like, it makes no sense. Why did you design like that? Why do you base... I think you've been fucking shithead developers now. I kind of dislike you. And I don't care if you lose your game or your companies anymore. Because you don't really value my fucking time. You'll stack 7 mobs on me all the fucking time. I resent this so much. Fuck your pop aggro and your fucking link in every single fucking game I play. All the fucking time. I get really sick of it. It's decades of it. I'm fucking sick of it. You need to do better. Old games, new games, doesn't matter. Both of them needed to do better.
Matt? No, so you're like chill the f out is what I meant by that. Just to remind you, the actual facts Matt is reacting to is that pro-choice witnesses refused to label abortion as infanticide, because according to every medical definition, it isn't, and used inclusive language when speaking about abortions because there are people who do not identify as female, such as
damn it,
trans
like
men,
everything
who
just
can
goes
become
right
pregnant.
through me. It's insane.
That's it. But to Matt, this thread of logic is the
Oh
domain
my
of
God, give
lunatics
me a
and
chance,
monsters with whom he cannot coexist. Note the severity of Matt's conclusion. It's not, I don't agree with these people, and I never will. It's, these people should not be allowed to live in this country, which is a goose step and a jump away from these people should not be allowed to live. How else are we, and more importantly, Matt's followers, supposed to interpret that? He ends his rant by saying, there can be no unity.
Why
and
5
we
all the
simply cannot
time?
go on this way.
5 mobs
You
all
can't
the
finish
time,
that
every
line
single
of thinking
fucking
without
poll.
violating Twitter's terms
Come on,
of
man.
service.
Stop being a fucking piece of shit developer. Son of a fucking bitch cocksucker. You put me through this all the time in every game I play. Why? Why is this constant link necessary? What's wrong with you? Like, come on, man. 5, 6 mobs on me and then 5 more after
Please,
that.
before
You're like,
Twitter's
why,
moderation team is hollowed
motherfucker?
out
It's
by a rich
basically a
weirdo.
solo game.
He's inciting
Why?
violence, and he knows it, and his followers know it. Because again, for Matt, the ends justify the means. The means being lying, and the ends being the victimization of the specific people he doesn't like. People who have done nothing wrong, and are just trying to, like, exist. Who Matt very clearly wants to do away with, but he can't say that. So he has to pretend that these people create some sort of danger. He has to dehumanize them with othering language so as to justify any cruelty that results from his terrible speech. It's almost like, it's almost like the damage caused by a moral panic is way worse than the actual pretend thing the moral panic is about. And the people who perpetuate these are often aware of that fact, and are doing it specifically to hurt people. I don't know. Fuck those people. Fuck them right in the neck. Or
get out.
mock them, or ignore them, or mock and then
Why
ignore
is
them.
why
And
this
then
many
focus on
mobs?
the people they are
Why?
trying to hurt.
Come on,
Because
why
a key
that many
component to
mobs?
all
That's
of
just
this that we
insane.
haven't really talked about is the
Come
word
on, man.
panic. Panic.
I feel like every single poll, it's like I'm pulling an entire fucking dungeon. You need to get a fucking handle on it, you piece of shit developer.
The actual factor that makes this so easily weaponized. Because when you are panicked, you aren't thinking, you're scared. Or horny if you have a panic fetish. And even when there is a real threat, the panic still leads to some terrible, often worse decisions. See Terror, the war on. We got 9/11, remember that? I forget the exact date, but the result was a series of wars, rollbacks on privacy, and racist paranoia that resulted in way more death and destruction than what sparked it all. Not to mention the terrible, terrible TV and movies that soon followed.
We work for Atlantis Cable News, and we wanted you and your first officer and flight attendant crazy lady to be the first ones on this plane to know that our armed forces killed Osama bin Laden for you.
Killed Osama bin Laden for you tonight. Oh my god, shut the fuck up. You and your fucking tribalist bullshit. This was my least favorite part of this entire show. And I love this show, almost every word of it, but this stupid shit about Osama bin Laden is the only part of the show that fell fucking stupid ass Aaron Sorkin and his pro Law and Order fucking weird, like, pro 9/11 bullshit. Like, I swear to God. Every time that you say that Osama bin Laden was captured by American forces, you push this colonialist, fucking shitty conquistador lie where you didn't kill 3,000 of your own fucking citizens in a fucking attack on your own country. And it's colonial, like, fucking shitty lie. It's a shitty lie. It's the kind of thing Aaron Sorkin would believe, too. It's stupid. I love Aaron Sorkin, but, I mean... Not this stupid ass moment. Thank you. Serious? You serious? Yeah, we got Osama bin Laden. Woo! We got Osama bin Laden. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Oh, the death of another man makes me so happy. You know, it's like, come on, man. You know what would really make me happy about the death of Osama bin Laden is the acknowledgement that the entire thing is a lie and a myth. If that kind of closure will heal the country, not catching his ass. Revenge never works. We all know it doesn't. It never does. It's about changing the circumstances that led you to that dark alley, you know? So I want to take some joy in, you know, getting smarter, more intelligent as Americans, and just not, you know, not subscribing to some culturalist lie just because the news media told you that. And they're like, you should feel really good that our armed dudes 2,000 miles away killed some guy. And you had a really bad day today, but it's okay. Our armed forces killed some dude 2,000 miles away. He didn't really do anything, but you should really feel good about it.
We reported the news.
Powerful, hilarious stuff. See, moral panics come and go,
powerful,
but their effects can last for decades or more. And the first step in dealing with them is to not panic, even when there's something to panic about. Things like climate change and fascism and genetically enhanced smart spiders are real things that can make you feel quite panicked. But the solutions to those things require us to tackle them with a level head. It's weird to say the answer is stay calm, but that's seriously a key component to combating this problem. And always remember the actual people
Spear in your
that these
face,
moral panics
bitch.
hurt, and do what we can to help those people. Like maybe if they need some fruit sliced for them, we can do that with our brand new Switchblade. Guess what just came in the mail while we were talking? I am gonna be the coolest kid on the block. Ow! Oh! Oh, that hurt so bad. Oh my god! Whoa! Oh, they should put a warning on these things or something.
Don't be a pussy when you use a switchblade. Shut up, you're not funny. Stop making jokes. Jokes for really dry people. Ugh. Yeah, the conversation they had. The obsession with bad games. Yeah, what is the obsession with bad games? The Eugenics Crusade. Steven Crowder just needs a friend, and fine, I guess.
Hello, it's news, and I'm Cody Johnston. Hey,
I like Cody
listen.
Johnston. I do.
Hey,
I think he's
hello,
very, very good.
hi. Here's some
and
news.
the
A
lady
right-wing
that's on the
YouTuber
show.
changed my mind changer. Steven Crowder was recently in the hospital receiving pectus surgery and treatment for a lung collapse. And that's a bummer. Not just because nobody likes being in the hospital unless they have some kind of, I don't know, hospital fetish, but also because we were going to do an episode about him, but didn't want to, like, kick him while he was down. That would be pretty mean, you know? Like something, I don't know, like a Steven Crowder type might do. Because Xenu knows that it's not nice to speak ill of the ill, right? And even worse, to speak ill of the recently murdered.
Oh, there he is! Oh
I
no,
love
Sam
atheists.
Cedar! What a fucking nightmare!
Gruesome stuff. Anywho, he's better now. So congratulations on getting better, Steven Crowder. You really helped a news dude out. In other news, to briefly summarize before we get to the real point here, Steven Crowder is a desperate right-wing shill who ambushes unsuspecting college freshmen with his debate team quasi-regional champion cue cards while being deathly afraid of anyone with actual knowledge. He tries exceedingly hard to be a comedian by making fun of people based on race, sexuality, gender, and religion, plagiarizing most of his content from middle school bathroom walls. There's this classic "socialism is for figs" t-shirt that he claims is not homophobic, and him calling Carlos Maza a gay man, a lispy queer. In one of his Louder with Crowder episodes...
It's funny because the shirt isn't homophobic, though. It's actually pro-gay. It's kind of funny. But the word that it uses is homophobic, so that's all they see. But the shirt itself is actually fabulous.
Episodes that got him temporarily booted from YouTube, he and his henchmen, I think they're henchmen, well, they did a segment making fun of Asian people with stereotypes plagiarized from, I don't even know when, middle school bathroom walls from the 1880s, that one Dr. Seuss book. Fun stuff, Steven. Glad you're doing better. Listen, I probably don't need to sell you on the fact that Steven Crowder is one of them racists. I'm sure his excuse is that his comedy is edgy and we're all snowflakes for not laughing at his funny jokes. But if you're not the walking personification of a Call of Duty chat, you probably already see right through this. You might even know that Steven Crowder actually started his career as a stand-up comedian and was, what's the word?
Of course, I grew up in a high school which was largely Middle Eastern, so you get these Arab thugs. You can't pull off the thug look. You'd be like, oh, you know what? I am going to mess you up hardcore. Check out the turban, white boy. I wear my nut on the left side. Yes, that's the crib side.
Are you talking about Hindu people? You fucking piece of shit. And here's where I get banned. I was gonna say a word that'll get me banned. You're getting your fucked up stereotypes fucked up here. You're making fun of Japan, but you're making fun of India, but you think you're making fun of Arab people, and Indians and Arab people are not the same thing.
Bad. That was the word. Steven Crowder was a bad comedian. And still is a bad comedian. And even then, a racist one. A racist, bad comedian. And a bad racist comedian? Like, he can't even do the racism correctly. Arabs don't have whatever weird fake Indian or Pakistani accent Crowder is trying to do, and turbans aren't typically an Arab thing. And yet, he liked this bit so much, he did it again at TCon Midwest in 2011.
Of course, I grew up in a high school which was largely Middle Eastern, so you get these Middle Eastern wannabe thugs. Nice
Wow, he
people,
did
but
this.
you can't pull off the
Oh, this is him later.
Oh, you know what? I am going to mess
He's doing this his own bit 20 years later. What a fucking scrub hack. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have done it back then. I can't believe you're doing it again.
And if you watch just a little bit more, you'll see the actual point of his whole shtick and what people actually want from him.
It's gonna get a comment at Media Matters.
That's the big laugh. Not the joke part, but the part where he points out that other people will be mad that he did a racist joke. That's where it all comes from. But look, I'm not trying to be Lord Comeday, casting bolts of judgment down from atop my cloud, Mount Olympus, but I think it's safe to say that Steven Crowder is part of that subset of comedians who didn't really cut it doing stand-up and opted to appeal to the niche audience of hardcore racists who force laughter through their sneering maws anytime someone does a stereotypical black person voice.
I don't know where you find this many farmers of color, but they did. And $5.2 billion are being allocated exclusively for colored farmers. Farmers of color, roll the tape. Yeah, most happy about the new policy, these people. So, yeah. I'm gonna buy a plow, man. I'm gonna plant that corn. Go get a John Deere. Barack Obama, mother, I'm the president of plowing that ass.
I planted a Hennessy tree. But it's not growing.
Well, technically it did grow, but that ain't XO.
I put it in the ground.
I planted a VSOP XO tree. I'm getting in some niche esoteric cognac humor, motherfucker.
So I guess the joke is that black people can't be farmers? Such biting comedy. And boy, we sure could go through all of Steven's videos like this, specifically the dark vat that is his older videos, which all hinged on a combination of conservative values, blinding racism, and a series of incredibly depressing comedic impressions, which are, yes, often also racist.
Now, it should be noted that every detainee must get 3 square meals and adequate hydration. Diet?
Yeah.
Diet?
Because this doesn't taste like diet.
It's diet.
Detto America. People out there, do you honestly believe that America is losing its moral high ground and consider this torture?
It's actually pretty remarkable to watch sitcom-level safe humor combined with seething hate to create this megazord of bad comedy, a witch's brew of uber-Republican ideals and gaudy vaudevillian instincts.
Yeah, the economy is pretty much getting creamed, but that's because it was all George Bush's fault! Don't worry about that. Let's just dance.
Now that's actually a pretty good Pee Wee Herman, so I don't know. Maybe I'm just too shocked and pearl clutching to find that funny. Or maybe it's because of all the other things I just said about Steven not being all that funny. And when his humor isn't racist or political, it's basically stuck in the 1990s.
You notice a disturbing trend, dream catchers hanging from rear view mirrors in cars? You guys seen this? It's a Native American Indian contraption, consists of wooden hoops and feathers, supposed to help you sleep soundly. Why the heck would you need a dream catcher in your car? I mean, it's one thing to fall asleep at the wheel, but to plan on it?
Right? Dream catchers in cars? Have you seen this? You hear about this? People driving with dream catchers for dreams? But you can't sleep in a car. I mean, sure, you know, it's fine. It's a joke. It's fine. It's better than being racist, perhaps. And he gets some laughs doing it, albeit from a crowd of people there to watch him do the racist stuff later on. The point here is that, in terms of his comedy background, Steven Crowder's origin story isn't exactly mysterious. Much like a lot of these grifter weirdos, he started in the entertainment industry, was met with failure, and pivoted to being the thing he is today. But again, this isn't really the point, that he's racist or not that funny, or whatever combination of the two. Because look, Steven Crowder just got surgery. And sometimes life-altering events, such as surgery, can change a person's perspective. He got help from doctors, put his life in their hands. Maybe what he described as a near-death experience gave him a different perspective. After all, if he hadn't had access to healthcare and the best doctors, he would have been in trouble. Maybe some of the fear he experienced helped open his eyes to the plight of other people. No, I'm sorry, I can't actually do this. Of course, none of that happened, obviously. Like, I truly hoped that Steven Crowder would get good healthcare, extend his life, and actually
Why that
change
many?
his mind. But spoilers,
why? Are
that
you
didn't
stupid?
happen. And before this surgery, he's had so many videos
I think
about
you
the
are. You're
evils of
stupid.
universal health care,
That's why your
or
game's
single-payer
dead.
healthcare, and
You're stupid.
Obamacare. Like, not critiques about it or how it needs to be better, but actually saying it's bad and we shouldn't do it. Specifically, he likes to claim that other countries where you pay less also offer less good health care.
Studies show that health service patients are 45% more likely to die in British hospitals than the United States. And I've talked about this many times. Wait times in Canada for hospital beds, they're close to 9 hours. The NHS failed to reach its goal of a 4-hour wait.
The goal?
Yeah. 4-hour wait times in the ERs. What time in the US? It's about 2 hours. So again, don't just look at the one portion of the equation. How much are you spending? What are you getting for that? What is the rest of the world getting from privately funded healthcare?
Hey, neat fact about that study saying more people die in the hospital in Britain. It wasn't peer-reviewed, took information from a very small sample in the US, but most notably, the reason why less Americans are dying in a hospital, if true, wouldn't have to do with hospitals in America being better quality. It actually just means more Americans are dying at home because they can't afford to die in a hospital, which you might recognize as literally the opposite of his point. But yes, he's right that Canada has a wait time problem, especially when it comes to seeing a specialist. But there's an argument that it has more to do with Canada's inability to properly fund programs designed to help, and also the US just has way more specialists. But at the end of the day, Canadians still tend to have a longer life expectancy, specifically for patients with a chronic illness. And that was a direct result.
Can I get an
of Canadian
attack
access
off
to
before all
healthcare.
5 mobs
Not
hit
saying
me?
it's perfect up there,
Come
with all the
on,
Wolverines running
man.
around, but rather that this conversation is way more nuanced than Steven is making it. But of course, he's not actually having that conversation. He's just saying that since Canada has wait times, it means Obamacare is bad. Not that it should be better, just that it's bad and we shouldn't do it.
I happen to be a proponent of a single-payer universal health care plan.
Callis, that's cool!
Hey, I know there, that's why I put it in there, that's why I pay.
You guys, you all afraid because of the Care Obama? Okay, in Quebec we have it for a long time. At work, no problem, okay?
So I go to doctor, I need to get a tetanus shot, là, and I take me peut-être 4 or 5 months.
Yeah. And how you feel after that?
Hey, I feel okay, là. Every once in a while, là, my jaw get a bit stuck.
Holy Christ, is he doing Borat? Not that it matters, but most Canadians have tetanus boosters because they're free. But if you didn't, you just go to the ER there. And while wait times are long, they still average only a few hours before a doctor would see you. And so he's a liar is my point. I'm getting into the weeds here. Because most of these grifters are so dense or subtly manipulative in their lies that it takes like 20 minutes to debunk every minute of what they say. For reference, see like all the videos out there debunking these liars and weirdos. Or see Potholer54, also known as Peter Hadfield, a geologist and science journalist who's made several videos meticulously and calmly dismantling Crowder's lies and misleading videos about climate change. Crowder was scheduled to debate Hadfield, but due to scheduling conflicts that Crowder totally couldn't accommodate, they never got to speak about the very clear explanations of Crowder's very obvious lies. Crowder's video about this is now set to private, interesting. Hadfield has also made in-depth videos about PragerU, and specifically climate liar Patrick Moore, who can be seen lying for, oh, Steven Crowder, that's fun. So instead of addressing the outright lies in his articles and videos, he challenges someone to a debate, and in this case, ducks the debate. More on that later. My point is, he seems to lie about things, and specifically doesn't seem to want a system where people can get health care free at point of service or be free from medical debt. So I was rooting for him to have an actual change of heart. I'm sure a lot of people can look at these tweets and think they were sarcastic, but I like it when people don't die and are good to other people. That's like my politics. And I know it's stupid and corny and unrealistic apparently, but wouldn't it have been great if Steven Crowder went to a bunch of doctors because he was worried that he was going to die, and they helped him, and he could easily afford it and didn't have to worry about being able to afford it on top of the stress on his mind and body.
Like, you guys like sit there and you make fun of the problem all the fucking time, but I want to see some closure and some fixing. Like, I don't know, it's like
body of having to get surgery. It seemed like he was scared, which is fine. It's Shocktober after all. But wouldn't it have been neat, or even swell, if he experienced that and then thought, wait a second, I'm so lucky. And it's possible for a society in the 21st century to make that experience available to everybody. You don't have to be lucky to afford medical help. Wowee, I guess I've changed my mind. You know how his whole meme thing is that he's apparently willing to have his mind changed? It's the thing he's most known for, aside from being racist and homophobic for attention. And yet, in the last 12 or so years, you might be shocked to learn that Steven Crowder has only claimed to have changed his mind once. And that was about now liking Elon Musk, because of course. Also, the first 8 minutes of that video has Crowder talking about how he still thinks electric cars aren't good for the environment, nor are subsidies for electric cars good. But he needed autopilot because of an ailment of his wife, and also he drove one and they're fun to drive, so he changed his mind on Tesla specifically. Bravo, Steven. Anyway, hey, and geez, why has this amazing feat of changing your mind about a product your wife needed only happened once? Is Steven just always super right about everything he says. Or perhaps, maybe, it's just that the rest of those Change My Mind videos aren't private, personal stories that involve driving a cool car and his wife's medical needs, but rather they're debates that play out like...
What example will we point to before we go on? Because I know a lot of times we disagree, of a successful socialist country.
Well, there are different kinds of socialism. I think you're thinking of the Soviet Union and Venezuela when you say these are unsuccessful countries. But you also have Sweden, you have Norway, you have Finland, you have Denmark, you have Germany.
Sure.
These are countries that have robust economies and high levels of socialization.
Right. What's their minimum wage?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head.
What if I told you that they have no minimum wage?
There are plenty of countries that have high minimum wage. Australia has a high minimum wage.
I know, but we didn't talk about them. We talked about a successful socialist economies.
Ooh, he totally got him! Steven totally destroys a random college student, is what they all will say. Except Germany actually has a minimum wage, and the rest of those countries have trade unions.
I've never heard of a country not having a minimum wage.
That set wages for different industries. And so in Norway, for example, an unskilled worker still makes the equivalent of about $15 an hour. But that kid, who actually owns Crowder later in the video, and was also on a little fascist Little America First show, so I don't know. But the point is, he isn't necessarily going to know this stuff, because he's just going off the top of his head. While Steven has come to his campus specifically setting up a topic he's gathered information on beforehand. Information that, in this case, was just wrong, and in a lot of cases, he's cherry-picking, versus some dude who can't readily access information backing up their point. This is why these videos are not so much convincing to watch as they are frustrating. It's frustrating to debate someone when you're unprepared, isn't it, Steven?
This is important. I'm going to defend myself here. Because you have someone here at the ready, and what you do is, instead of bringing up information, this is what happens with Christopher Titus, right? You don't have information that you bring up. You have another guy look up a source that you specifically want him to find.
I didn't ask him to bring that up.
Yes, you did. And he brought up Washington Post and goes, this is what's wrong with your article, taking a joke out of
he had already been talking. You didn't have a joke, and all he did was pull up some
two
information.
people bringing up information, me without a laptop.
No, that's Steven going against top debate mind Joe Rogan about marijuana, something Steven has made entire videos trying to convince people is bad. His claim to Rogan is that since he's a user of the pot, he just wants it to be good for you and is cherry-picking studies to back him up. Emoji of hand-rubbing chin.
Something else, a lot of people are going to be surprised when I say benefits of tobacco, or its active constituent here, nicotine. Controversial, I know. Nicotine, when separated, by the way, from the dangerous habit of cigarettes, specifically inhaled tobacco, not the boogeyman it's made out to be. And I know you're going to say, well, I'm just trying to justify this habit. All right, in order of safety, it goes cigarettes, and then and then probably chew and snuff. What is it? The Swedes snuffs in the nose?
Snooze.
I don't know. And then it goes down
in the nose.
Then it goes probably cigars and pipes because you're not. And then it would go to like vaporized nicotine, pure nicotine or nicotine gum. Nicotine by itself actually eliminated from tobacco. When they did studies on, it was almost impossible for them to get the mice addicted to nicotine by itself.
Hey, that's not true. But I'm getting in the weeds again here, and not the cool weeds that Steven hates. Steven who smokes cigars that are totally good for him. And so, yeah, of course he doesn't change his mind by randomly interviewing college kids. He has specifically designed it so that he doesn't have to. But maybe facing an actual life or death experience would perhaps actually change his mind about something. Like, despite all of the other chances he's disingenuously given himself, perhaps this was the chance. Perhaps going to the hospital is the dark third act to Steven's character arc, resulting in a Hallmark Channel change of heart.
But what a brilliant business model to create a vaccine, and then God knows what's going to happen with the variant, because there are variants with all kinds of coronaviruses that have existed since the beginning, since the inception of coronaviruses. And now, because of a variant, you need another booster. And of course, there will be another variant, and you're going to need another booster. You basically so once you join that circus, you better stick along for the ride for the rest of your life.
Nope. That wily vaccine business model got to him first. So yeah, almost literally the day he was back on air, he started questioning the overall consensus of medical experts. You know, the group of people who, according to him, saved his life. And cashed in on being a contrarian who pretends like doctors can't do shit for you. And alternatives like ivermectin are the only chance you have.
If you go to the hospital now, they say, go home and take Tylenol, come back in, and they toss you on a ventilator. In other words, let's say ivermectin were used, which it has been in some other countries. We cannot argue whether it's been used effectively or not, because that's not allowed on YouTube. However,
I think we could say Joe Rogan did effectively use it, though, or at least in his opinion.
Along with the monoclonal,
monoclonal
and the vitamin antibodies.
Weirdly enough, Crowder's vast medical knowledge is, in this case, incorrect. And you know, I don't think we need to do the work to explain the effectiveness of the vaccines or the ivermectin stuff, especially since we just did that. And if you haven't yet, maybe you should, definitely get vaccinated. The point is that, of course, Steven Crowder is going to snake his way into appealing to the anti-vaccine crowd, proudly tweeting, "In case it wasn't eminently clear, no, I have not taken the mRNA vaccine." And, that's weirdly specific, my guy. Like, that just means you got the J&J shot, right? It's really obvious, actually, right? Much like Tarko Karblung and Dave Theodore Rubin. Of course he got the vaccine. It's obvious even with your highly specific and careful wording. So why does Crowder suddenly not trust doctors right after being treated by doctors? Does he have one of them memento brain things where his memory wipes every 10 minutes? Has anyone checked him for tattoos? Why would this seemingly principled man who is super concerned about trusting doctors suddenly trust doctors when his life was actually in danger? Surely he can't be like a total hypocrite, right? Or like completely full of shit. Oh no. It might be that. It might be the second part of Steven Crowder's origin story that we need to talk about, which is the fact that before being whatever he thinks he is today, Steven Crowder was an actor. While he was performing bad stand-up in his teens, Crowder made multiple appearances as extras and bit roles in such films as David Duchovny's The Secret and 2006's The Covenant, two films you definitely need to Google for vastly different reasons. Most famously, he was the voice of Alan the Brain Powers on the TV show Arthur.
What would you think of me if I ever got anything wrong?
Huh. Weirdly prescient children's show about aardvarks. You got any other hilariously fitting clips from this show where Steven Crowder played a cartoon animal?
And what's the deal with cafeteria food? Excuse me, but if I want slop, I can read Ogelberg's treatise on binomial coefficients. Laugh, 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 laugh.
And I came. Now, I'm not going down some rabbit hole where I call Crowder a conservative plant like Sir Ben Kingsley's character in Iron Man 3. Crowder's roots are firmly right-leaning, and he would in fact go from this stage in his life to being hired by Fox News to write, "I shat on you not," multiple columns about the importance of abstinence before marriage. In fact, from what I can tell, Steven Crowder started his life as a theater kid raised by religious conservative parents who, and this is important, was probably bullied pretty bad for it.
You've got to be the stupidest person in the world to bully a gay or trans person in school. As a matter of fact, I bet you they would say like, "Hey, Timmy, what are you, gay?" "Yeah, I'm sorry, don't let the dean know, I'm so sorry." Whereas when I was a kid, I got called it all the time because I wasn't gay, but I was a loser.
Yeah, you'd have to really be stupid to bully gay kids in high school. What you gotta do is wait until you're in your 30s and then bully gay kids. Anyway, you see there at the end of the clip where things might have gone wrong for old Steve, where he says he was a loser, as opposed to him now. I can't speak to this part of his life, but Steven Crowder went to college for arts and only lasted a few semesters. His life was a mix of interest in acting and having the type of politics that would clash with most peers in that field. And to top it off, he was trying to be a comedian but having no success, and so he made a decision. And that was to take on the role of a conservative tough guy, culture warrior, doing the most edgy things he could think of to get attention. A big, strong man who tells it like it is and performs masculinity like a little boy trying to act like an adult to see an R-rated movie. Like, say, pretending to be an anti-union on-the-ground reporter who gets punched in the face and then stops doing that and then just resorts to confronting college kids because he's a tough guy. And it's very transparent. He wears little cowboy gun holsters, a prop gun on his desk, posts pictures of himself smoking big man cigars that are totally good for you to seemingly counterbalance some deep fear that getting medical treatment would make him less of a man or something. And it's why he tries to impress Joe Rogan with his big boy whiskey opinions and immediately backtracks when offered some.
You know what's actually a great whiskey that has is Wild Turkey 101.
That stuff's disgusting.
No.
We have some. You want some?
I can't move!
Pussy.
But Wild Turkey 101 is a fantastic drink. It really is. It's like Jim Beam advertises aged 4 years. Well, Wild Turkey 101 is 8 years off the back.
Look, it's fine if you don't want to drink, Steven. I'm not gonna bully you about that, or your incredibly wrong opinion about Wild Turkey, because bullying is bad. But hey, I get it. Guns and whiskey and cowboy shit, it's all pretty cool, so they tell you. So before I get to this next part, maybe in the spirit of the season, I can learn a thing or two from Steven and try to appeal to his target audience. Hang on a second, hold on. Hold the f*** on. Yeah! Oh yeah, this is up right here. Check me out. It's Rowdy Cody, and I'm a big boy. You better believe it. Pew, 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 pew. Eating beans, fucking horses. No, not that, but I'm so ready to go onto some random college campus and find a 17-year-old freshman to practice techniques I learned from how to argue with liberals and win. Ah! A middle-aged man with opinions and information, my only weakness. So look, the point is, when you recognize that most of what he says is a bunch of curated lies, when you boil him down to this foundation, Steven Crowder is a cosplayer. He's no different from your average Spider-Man or Wolverine at a convention, the only contrast being that he wants you to think he can actually climb up buildings or shoot bones out of his skin. And actually, hold on, let me check. Snicked. Ooh, I think I actually peed. Anyway, the fact Steven Crowder is a cosplayer explains his whole shtick. It explains his background, his hypocrisy, his boilerplate and uncreative opinions on everything, and why he put his life in the hands of qualified medical professionals when it really mattered, before happily suggesting that doctors can't actually do anything for you if you get COVID. Does anyone seriously think that Steven Crowder himself avoided the vaccine and would take ivermectin instead? No. The guy is, to be frank, a coward with a healthy sense of self-preservation, for the most part. Cool looking with those totally healthy cigars. And when he had to have surgery, he didn't go to a random quack doctor after reading one retracted study about a new type of heart surgery using horse blood. It's real doctors for me, horse dewormer for thee. Probably the best combination of all of these concepts. The lying, cosplaying as a tough guy who puts his money where his mouth is, claiming that his mind could be changed when his mind is actually so far up his ass the only way to get money near his mouth would be through an enema. It's all really best seen with Crowder's contribution to the discourse on the murder of George Floyd, aka pretending to get his neck kneeled on to show people it's not so bad.
We're ready when you are.
Ready? And 3, 2, 1.
Okay, all right. So
Timer down.
Kneel.
Kneel on my neck here, shoulder.
Oh, pause the timer.
Oh my goodness.
It's okay.
There we go. All right, now I'll roll it back.
It's actually more uncomfortable for me because I have a bad shoulder. So my left shoulder right now is popped out of the socket, but
It's 5 seconds in and you don't like it.
So yeah, obviously some real ghoul shit to cosplay and belittle someone's murder, making a racist mockery of police violence against minorities, standard Crowder shenanigans. But you probably noticed something else wrong with this video. Namely, he doesn't have the guts to actually reenact how Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd, because, you know, he probably didn't want to get killed or severely injured. We won't replay the video of the murder because you've all probably seen it already and lots of you probably don't really want to see it again. But as would later be explained in court, Derek Chauvin puts his entire weight on George Floyd's neck, with his feet barely touching the ground, whereas Crowder's friend dressed as a cop clearly has most of his weight on his feet, and his knee is on Crowder's back, not his neck, so that they don't kill him on camera like the actual fucking murder video. It's so glaringly obvious, even Crowder's sidekick calls him out during the filming.
I just don't see this as the same move, though.
What?
Dave, how do you see it as so different? Are you saying...
Put up the photo.
The photo, do you think all of his weight was on the front of his knee?
I do think that towards the end all the weight was on the front of his knee. Yes, look at how he's leaned up. Look at how Tokunawa is.
What's the difference between what Tokunawa is doing versus the picture?
The picture looks to be
He's very
as if
much
he's
higher.
higher.
The
See, that's two of
officer
us
is higher?
saying that. The officer is higher,
Okay,
absolutely.
so Tokunawa just makes your body upright.
Yeah, push it higher.
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 He's saying trying to keep your body straight
About
up.
there, right about there. Yeah.
There you go.
That might be too high. A little back.
No, not you, Brennan.
So, Steven, did
now,
that
Brennan,
change
let go of my
anything for
legs
you?
and just hold my feet.
Now
that's what happened.
Now ask Tokunawa if he feels that he's got to put more pressure on his knees.
Well, I'll tell you what, it actually is less weight on me from when he got up.
Hey, good point, henchman. You know about how this detail pretty much invalidates the entire point of Steven's nearly 2-hour video? Also, I'm pretty sure that if this was a real case of police brutality, Crowder couldn't simply direct the officer exactly where he wants his knee to go like he's guiding a masseuse.
My response is agreement.
I think they were lower on the legs there, Brendan.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what, Tokunawa, let's also, because now they're saying it was on the neck and shoulder, let's move the knee to a little more, it was more, no, it wasn't on the shoulder, it was across the shoulder blade.
Wouldn't you have to restart the clock?
No, the point is they did both positions, most of the time was on the shoulder and the back of the neck.
Hey, weird how he can lift his head during this, almost as if he isn't pinned at all and is just lying and cosplaying. And I don't mean about the murder victim here. He's actually cosplaying as Christopher Hitchens. See, back in the day, when we were at war in the Middle East, no, I don't mean a few weeks ago, I mean back in the early 2000s during the Iraq War, there was some controversy over whether waterboarding, where you slowly suffocate someone with water in a hood, is torture. Gee. But furthermore, golly, I wonder. But pro-war conservatives swore it wasn't really torture, just enhanced interrogation that was simply just so uncomfortable that the prisoners felt compelled to tell you anything, even lies, to get it to stop. You know, torture. Pro-war Christopher Hitchens was skeptical about this torture being all that torturous, so he actually tried it. And I mean actually tried it with waterboarding specialists and immediately begged for the experiment to stop and published an article called "Believe Me, It's Torture," where he admitted how much being tortured sucked and that he actually changed his mind. And that is, of course, most of what I'm getting at here. That along with cosplaying as a tough man, Steven Crowder is mainly cosplaying as a man actually willing to have his mind changed. Some big brain, objective, intellectual renegade who's just, he's just totally just asking questions. Just using logic and facts and such. Only he's just so incredibly transparently bad at it that it's often hilarious how stacked he makes the deck to prevent any actual growth. For example, a bit less ghoulish than "the murdered guy wasn't murdered, and to prove it, I'm gonna take a nap while my friend pretends to put his weight on my neck." My first real and only interaction with Crowder was 4 or 5 years ago in a video about gun control. In it, while talking about the so-called gun show loophole, I reference a video of Crowder's in which he debunks the gun show loophole. The point of my video is that the gun show loophole is real, though interestingly enough, I've since changed my mind because it's not a gun show loophole, it's just a law. The way the law works, it's not a loophole. But you can buy a gun from a private seller without a background check, in part at gun shows. That's just true. But Crowder, well, he went undercover, or, you know, cosplayed as someone undercover to prove this wasn't possible.
Which one of these can, do the most damage?
What are you looking to do with it? You're probably just having fun at the range, right?
Yeah, let's call it that.
Are you doing like home defense or like what is your?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
At least.
Is that your intent to make this into a fully auto?
Does it matter if I say yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Then I'll say no.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we cannot sell you a gun.
Wow, I can't believe they wouldn't sell you a gun, Steven. Epic investigation. We really learned a lot. Anyway, I pointed out how silly it was to claim that this hidden camera footage of Steven Crowder pretending like he's going to murder people with guns is in any way proof that you can't buy a gun from an unlicensed vendor at a gun show. I pointed to an actual investigation done by the state of New York with actual hidden camera footage of someone actually trying to buy and successfully buying a gun at a gun show. That's all. That's all I pointed out. And his response to this was to tweet in all caps, "Challenge accepted," and then say we would debate. Not would you debate me, but treating my little segment as a direct challenge and request to debate him. I would show this tweet of his, but he deleted all of the tweets associated with it. Here's my response if that helps. I still am not sure what he wanted to debate, but I didn't, because that would have been silly. Debate what? I'll meet privately with him, have a little drink of his choice, ask him why he thinks pretending to be a future murderer is proof that you can't go to gun shows and buy guns from private sellers. Again, much like cosplaying as Hitchens, he's cosplaying as an investigative journalist, going out doing real undercover research to debunk the lies of the left. But he doesn't do that. He does...
Does it matter if I say yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Then I'll say no.
And again, I totally get it. Cosplaying, I mean, not making a mockery of someone's murder. But like, I did theater, I was in bands, I did sketch comedy for a decade. On this show, I mostly talk to versions of myself and a puppet. Do you actually think I've ever worn a suit before? This is my only tie, and it's for this.
You should mention the nice lady.
Costumes are fun, Steven.
The lady is
After
part
all,
of this damn show,
the world
too.
is scary out there.
I
And
bet
many
she probably
adults love to
hates you
dress up,
secretly.
not just on Halloween, in order to feel a level of empowerment they might not normally get. I mean, check this shit out. Yee! Ha!
You guys are
and
so
light 'em
self-absorbed.
up. When you dress up as one of your favorite characters and go to conventions or pretend to be them, it's fucking fun. But also, you get to pretend to be someone you admire. Or think it's cool to shoot lasers out of your butthole or do real good punches. You get to be fucking Kratos or the Joker or what have you. But the key to fun, healthy cosplay is that you know it's pretend. You know you're not actually Kratos or steampunk Simba, but it's fun and freeing to kinda act like you are. Meanwhile, Steven Crowder is cosplaying as a version of Steven Crowder that Steven Crowder wants to be perceived as. Do you think Steven Crowder, the guy who voiced the brain on Arthur, grew up as a gunslinger in a post-apocalypse who needs to wear Nathan Drake gun holsters on his mom and dad's YouTube set every day? No. It's cosplay. It's him pretending to be a tougher, scarier, and most importantly, an objective and logical version of himself. Just like the brain did on the second half of the 11th episode of the 3rd season of Arthur.
I started shaking, my legs were quaking, my stomach aching, my brain was breaking. Started turning green, feeling mean. It was like in that story. I was acting strange, quite deranged. It was pure allegory.
Okay, the brain in this clip was not actually voiced by Steven Crowder. He voiced the brain in seasons 5 and 6, but you get the point. And I don't know, maybe he is aware that he's putting on a show. He sure likes dressing up a lot for quote fingers comedy purposes, and he would probably use that as the argument for why everything I'm saying is phooey. But even when he's purposefully doing a costume, he's often doing it to cover for something traditionally perceived as weak by conservatives. If he's not just, you know, being racist. Like, remember how conservatives supported businesses refusing to make gay marriage wedding cakes? You remember that. And you can probably guess where Steven landed on that issue.
See, these laws are allowing businesses to maintain their private right of refusal to be involved with certain activities.
Cut to now, and Steven Crowder was suddenly very concerned with sites like YouTube pulling his videos, probably because they suspended him. And so Steven whined and sued YouTube, and then presented that whining and suing like this.
You tell them Crowder's coming and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
And like, just imagine that playing at a big cosplay convention center. I'm not a huge fan of YouTube, like and subscribe, but what Steve is doing here kind of encapsulates a lot of how he functions as a, I guess, let's call him a pundit. This is obviously a joke he's doing. He's dressing up like a tough guy on purpose to plug his show. But the lie he tells himself is that he doesn't do this every time he's on camera. He's always the big tough cowboy, right up until an actual cowboy comes along.
Oh no, Sam Cedar!
He's an actor, a cosplayer, and that would be okay if the things he was saying weren't so incredibly caustic to anyone too young to realize he's a liar and a hack. You know that guy who saw Mad Men and decided he needs to be Don Draper, missing the entire point of the show that Don Draper is a shallow, performed identity, and ironically performs the identity of Don Draper by smoking cigars and drinking whiskey and disrespecting women. Or better yet, disgusting. He's Mike Rowe.
Wow, you're really bald.
Who, if you don't know, is an ex-theater kid and opera singer with a degree in communication studies who goes on PragerU to tell other kids not to follow their passion, even though that's what he did, and became an actor who plays the part of a blue-collar worker on television in order to sell anti-union and anti-minimum wage propaganda, and who lectures students about useless non-trade degrees while he himself got a degree in communication studies. You see, this guy is funded by the Koch brothers and big oil companies, and that's how he went from the guy selling Precious Moments figurines on QVC to a fake blue-collar all-American gritty grit man on TV.
Precious moments. Hope your day is full of them. Perhaps these little figurines would add a bit more preciousness to your day. You remember how the Grinch Stole Christmas? Those little Whoville kind of guys?
Those Whoville kind of guys.
Yeah, I can hum a few bars. But don't these look like the those guys who hung out in, what was it, Whoville? Cindy Lou Who?
Oh my God.
Like Smurfs, sort of.
He's Ben Shapiro with his failed ambitions of making it in Hollywood. Tucker Carlson bouncing around news networks, getting humiliated by Jon Stewart and finding a slimy, tight hole at Fox News. Or the pattern of comedians who suddenly pivot to conservatism when their routine becomes stale otherwise. Steven Crowder wants an audience, and he tried everywhere to find it, failed miserably, and so he landed in the one oasis he had, being a scared little racist. And he's not even very good at being that.
I said, I'm gonna go to New York. Ladies and gentlemen, with a shirt on my back, 3 clean pairs of underwear. 2, actually, after I went through Spanish Harlem. I bumped into a guy there. He got mad. He's like, oh, hey, man. Oh, do your thing, you are, okay? Oh, I know your gang. I know how your people treat my people. I'm like, whoa, man, I'm from Canada? We don't even have your people, okay?
Was that a German accent? Also, that story feels, made up. Also, it sure seems like Steven gets mugged a lot, at least according to him.
It's really, really safe. Like, you could wander around anywhere, 3 in the morning, it's no problem. It's beautiful.
Well, I can't. I was mugged twice.
In Montreal?
Yeah, I was mugged over a set of Interpol tickets by a small Haitian. Incidental. I only say it because the story was one that I've told on air. Yeah, I was mugged for Interpol tickets. He was a scalper anyway, mugged me for the money for the Interpol tickets. And then, anyway, the whole point is...
That's really humiliating.
Interpol tickets? Tell the story about Interpol tickets more.
I think that's really humiliating, especially because he was small and it was Montreal. It's like, how did you manage that twice?
Do you know how he got away? He screamed. I swear to you, this is true. He screamed out that I was racist, and I stopped chasing him.
Look, I don't want to just call someone a liar, even though they literally lie for a living, but it seems like all of these encounters involve minorities on the street randomly accusing Steven of being a racist while also attacking him.
Maybe
there's something to that. Especially since the only actual clip we have of an encounter like this involves Steven approaching a black graffiti artist, trying to debate him about cops shooting black men, ignoring every single word he says, and then calling the cops on him.
Hey man, do you mind if I ask is this your business here? You had to board it up?
No, I said this is my business.
This is your business?
No, that's not I'm minding my business.
Oh, is this your business here?
No, I don't own this.
Oh, I was asking about your art.
Stop talking for a second.
Well, no, I'm asking you a question.
No,
you say you people.
Talking.
I don't think that's racist.
You're not even humble enough to stop talking. How you gonna come and ask black people about what they're going through, but you can't even humble yourself to stop talking?
You've talked most of the time.
You want to waste my time?
I'm not I want to know what should we do?
Listen.
I'm listening.
Listen.
Yeah.
Your people, when they call the police
White
on
people.
our people.
White
yes,
people.
When the white skin complexion call the police on the black skin complexion, they say black people.
Yeah.
So that means that nations.
Some people do.
And that's not a racist
But not all white people.
Just listen, man. Stop interrupting me, please.
Well, you just said you people.
Stop interrupting me, please.
Go ahead.
Your people, white people, is what I said.
Right.
And that's not a racist comment. That's a fact.
You
that's
said,
what. Stop. Don't interrupt.
No, but you're wrong. You're saying racist.
Don't interrupt me.
You can't say you people do and then say not all white people are the same. Just like not all black people are the same. Not all white people are the same. Just like not all black people are the same. Does the owner know that you're doing this? Did you talk with him about it? Is this art or graffiti?
It's art.
Okay. Is it art or is this your business?
Thank you, bro.
Is this your business?
Thank you, bro.
It's not your business?
Interview's over. I'm gonna start recording. You keep harassing.
Is this a business?
Yeah.
Is it your business?
No.
Okay. Let's have someone call the police about to find out if it's a business.
That's not some professional leftist debater he's talking to. Just a dude on the street minding his own business who talks circles around him. So yeah, Steven Crowder has to put on his big boy gun holsters, sit in an air-conditioned studio, and make his half-assed racist points in the safety of his own bubble. And look, not knocking the format, obviously, but it's pretty breathtaking how most of his points and jokes only work in this extremely curated environment.
What? But the issue here is...
Go super woke.
Why do you need
the way.
a black James Bond? This is the issue when people talk about it. It's like you're injecting race where it doesn't need to be. What What did you do to my watch? What the fuck? My watch and my car? I can't. You look. I can't see the plate on the car. You know what's gonna happen with 5-0? I'll get pulled over for that. I can't do that. Dropping spikes and shit.
Hey, Steven, why would a black James Bond speak in a racist version of an American black accent? What is he, a farmer? James Bond is British, and Idris Elba, the actor people want as James Bond, is also British. Does Steven Crowder, like, not know that black people can be British? Because he might. He seriously might. Or I guess he's being, you know, edgy. But it sure seems like, at the end of the day, Steven Crowder is just, like, really insecure and dresses up in fun, tough guy costumes and has honed in on other races as the target of his insecurities. And that's, it. He grew up religious, probably sheltered, and bullied. In fact, Crowder hated bullies, probably for that reason. And yet here he now is, bullying every marginalized group he can think of, bullying trans people on Trans Awareness Day, calling the fucking cops on that guy earlier. He was bullied, and now he's a bully. You know, the worst reaction to being bullied. The resentment of being bullied transformed into basking in the power of being a bully. So, congrats on the mind change, I guess? But I don't know. Unless he does something actually edgy or notable, this should be my one and only video completely devoted to him. And we should instead maybe discuss the larger conversation of how the internet and social media should deal with people like him, and the balance of taking the good with the bad in an age where everyone and anyone has a voice, for better or for worse. Because while he seems so transparently obvious, Crowder is a very effective starting point for any young man like him to become an absolute racist monster, also like him. Because he's pretty much still that young, impressionable, angry man he appeals to. He has, ironically, not really changed his mind about anything in decades. And while I don't want to go into it too much, it should be noted that a bunch of personal accounts from people interacting with him have described him as both off-putting and disingenuous.
But to answer the question of why I actually stopped going on his show was because just some things that Steven had said to me off camera that kind of led me to believe that a lot of the things that he says about the LGBT stuff are not really how he feels, and that it's more of an act, and that it's more just what his audience wants, and it's pandering a little bit. And so I kind of felt like my position on his show made less and less sense because I don't act, and when I go on, it is for actual commentary.
Look, grains of salt here because this is so anecdotal, but it speaks to experiences that others have described about the whole right-wing sphere. Like, perhaps most ironically, or coincidentally, or I don't know, I'm not gonna look it up, person Crowder is deathly afraid of talking to, Sam Cedar, who often describes an interaction he once had with right-wing radio host and California Governor hopeful/failure Larry Elder.
He's like, come on, guys, we leave that stuff on the field. And we just looked at him and go, like, do you have any idea what your on-the-field antics lead to for this country?
No, it's performance art.
Honestly, that was certainly the impression that I was left with.
Again, grain of salt. But same story, different guy. But same thing from two folks with very different politics. It's an act. And I don't really want to prop up comedy genius Greg Gutfeld's personal account of the time he went to a bar with Crowder and watched him sit on the floor and drink milk, which is based on a text exchange between Gutfeld and YouTuber Vic Berger. But I find these details interesting, only in that they, if true, seem to confirm everything I've been getting at here, which is that at the end of the day, it really just seems like Steven Crowder wants to be popular, and perhaps needs an actual friend. Someone that would, I don't know, just spend time playing Mario Kart with him as opposed to feeding every racist and stupid thought he has. Most of his political views seem to come from personal experiences, his interactions with the world that perhaps might not be the usual interactions most people have. Like, he seems to get mugged a lot. I know we mentioned that, but I don't think we fully, really paused to appreciate how often Steven Crowder apparently gets mugged. And he seems to get mugged a lot by non-white people who apparently call him racist out of nowhere. And he has carried that over to, like, everything he says about non-white people. A very good example is when he talked about teachers going on strike for better pay. And while most of the episode is him mocking the phrase, teachers are the most important job because doctors exist, and like, yeah, good point, Stephen, he mocks them for having to buy supplies and reads an article about teachers' complaints set to sad music, and it's all the level of dumb you'd expect. But in a very revealing few moments, he discusses his own experiences with teachers, citing just a few who he actually remembers. One who helped him with math and stayed after class to work one-on-one with him for a few days.
So I've had some great teachers, but I've had a lot of, when you average it up, most of you have had somewhere between, in Canada it's a little bit different, I did immersion, so I've had somewhere close to 40 teachers by the time I was in college.
Right, yeah.
Most people have somewhere between 25 and 40. We go through grade school and high school, okay? I can name you 4 that had a positive impact on my life. Put it this way, I'm not condemning all teachers. What do I think? Let me simplify it. I think Miss Naidu deserves a 6-figure executive salary, and the other teachers deserve intern base pay. There you go, in a nutshell.
And bizarrely, he concludes that only those specific teachers he liked are the ones that should be paid more.
What?
The other teachers, who he didn't like, are the bad teachers, and they should be paid less. Because of his personal experiences with those teachers, ignoring the fact that there's a good chance the bad teachers helped other students who weren't specifically him, and that his story is actually an example of why we need more and better paid teachers so they can spend more one-on-one time with students instead of having dozens and dozens and dozens of students each semester. But it's just a really clear example of Stephen using some sort of personal anecdote and extrapolating it to his entire ideology and worldview. Most teachers didn't help him, so he kind of like hates teachers, I guess. He was allegedly mugged by non-white people, so he does racist caricatures of them and then calls the cops on a guy for embarrassing him. He was bullied by who he viewed as the left, and so he thinks bullying trans people is like getting back at them or something. It's just sad. Like, I certainly don't want to invite pity for someone who has done as much harm as Steven Crowder has, but he really just seems like a sad, scared person. And he's taken all of his personal anxieties and prejudices and turned them into an inconsistent and hateful ideology. And so he cosplays as a more confident, objective, manly man and uses that as an outlet for his early struggles with acting and comedy. This entire persona built on insecurity and a sheltered, skewed upbringing. He's actually like weirdly a lot like Darth Vader, not the part where he actually looks cool and is a badass and knows choke magic, but rather the origin of Anakin Skywalker turning to evil because of a series of stupid assumptions and misunderstandings. And I don't know, Stephen, if you're watching this, maybe I can be your friend. You stop this thing you do, and I'll play Mario Kart with you, and maybe you can talk to me about your personal life and acting aspirations, and I'll listen, but still probably won't laugh at your jokes. And then, perhaps together, we can find you a few gigs, or maybe get you in a room with someone with dark skin and teach you not to be scared of them. Baby steps, you know? Speaking of which, congratulations on having twins. I sure hope when they grow up, they won't have to watch their father's racist, sexist, homophobic YouTube videos and end up not wanting to be friends with their own dad. You know, like a certain pair of other twins. Now that might sound a bit manipulative, but like, has it occurred to Stephen that perhaps one of his kids might end up trans or gay, or simply more accepting of LGBTQ people? You know, since that's a thing now with the young folk. Or is Stephen going to keep them sheltered, isolated, and start an entirely new cycle of what was done to him? Because it doesn't matter if he doesn't really believe the things he says behind the scenes, it's still out there doing harm, creating and influencing more people who do believe it. If he actually cared about these communities, he wouldn't be putting out this harmful nonsense. It's just something he tells himself to make himself feel better about being a scared bully. Got a little real considering my costume, so I guess it's time to mosey on out of here. Let's ride, Steven! I named him Steven because, you know, it was the person I've been talking about, so. Listen up, fucks. it's Cody J with another fucking episode of Loosen Up Cucks with Cody J. Let's see what's in the newsfeed today, or should I call it the cuck feed?
The cuck feed. Jesus Christ, why do they say the word cuck so much?
Recently condemned
Why do they talk about child molestation so much? Why do they use the word cuck so much? I mean, I'm sorry. And why did they use the word bro so much? Like, I'm sorry, I don't know. It's like,
ignoring what she calls a very real threat of fascism in the country. But then the Democrat responded, but if we get rid of fascism, that would make one less Democrat in this room. Gary gets it. She's the fascist. Thank you, Gary. And speaking of soy, Senator Ron Paul look, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do this. Sorry, everyone. Sorry, Gary. You can go now. We'll keep in touch. Listen, we had a meeting about the numbers, and then someone, I'm not going to name who, but someone who was very drunk and also has my name, suggested that we try and appeal to conservatives with, like, a conservative version of the show. You know, to prove that we're balanced and fair, TMCR, and didn't just exist in this left liberal commie bubble that a lot of people, I assume, accuse us of. I don't know. I don't read the comments. But then you sort of realize that we didn't know any conservatives to guest host. Sadly, Crowder has yet to accept my friend request. So I figured, how hard could it be? But now I'm realizing that I'm just doing like a very bad parody of conservative comedy, or not even a parody. I think we had a segment plan where I catch a bullet in my mouth. No idea why. But then, when we tried to research this, we came upon a very concerning revelation. And so, here's some news with a question mark, because it's a question and not really news. Oh yeah, we're doing this, home slices. Various slices of homes. Sorry about your homes, but we're taking this on. And ultimately, that title card is a bit of a provocative misrepresentation of what we're really talking about. So if you'd prefer, why aren't there a lot of conservative comedians? Or rather, if you'd prefer, why aren't there a lot of famous conservative comedians today? These are all variations of the same question, depending on your personal views. You know, we welcome all kinds of people to Cody's Shody. We're very inclusive. Well, this episode is very inclusive, because this question concerns everyone. It's a bit of a conundrum, you know, something we all kind of accept, and the internet loves to write think pieces about. The stereotype being that, as it stands now, the only joke conservatives seem to have and glom onto is the old I identify as a blank bit, this meme and such. And it's the question we are being tasked with tonight. Because honestly, it shouldn't be that way. Humor isn't politically aligned, right? And to be clear, we're not talking about funny entertainers who happen to be Republicans like your Kelsey's Grammer or your David's Zucker, but rather comedy that's specifically right-leaning in themes. The Jon Stewart of the right, if you will.
What?
And just to get it out of the way, there are a lot of shitty, left-leaning comics out there. You may even think I'm one of them. I don't know. I don't read the comments. But the late-night model alone seems to exclusively function by taking literally any comedian and sucking their funny force like some kind of hot mummy curse. But I don't think there's a question about how oddly one-sided political humor really is. But heck, maybe we're all wrong and biased, and conservatives are actually hilarious, and liberals just don't find them funny.
So, do you remember Newton's law? Not that Newton, this Newton. Not that Newton, this Newton. There we go. Whew. That went over really well. Isaac Newton once said that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, meaning much like my nightly massage therapist, forces always come in pairs.
Nope, it's not that.
What? It's not that. Yeah, it's not that. It's not that.
Objectively speaking, that was very bad comedy. That is, of course, Gutfeld and his opening jokes pointing out that several things are, in fact, named Newton, followed by the line, and I'm going to directly quote him here, "Much like my nightly massage therapists, forces always come in pairs," as a punchline intro to a segment. And it's okay if you didn't fully understand what he said just then, because his delivery reads like someone who just learned what words are. That's definitely his first problem. See, what Gutfeld has there is a throwaway joke meant to bridge two subjects, something you would want to say naturally and fast that isn't hard to understand, like when I'm thanking my two massage therapists for their hard work. He's doing a casual simile, where the twist is that what you're comparing says something absurd about yourself. An actual example of this structure would be saying something like, comedy is about tone and texture, something that, much like my weird smooth balls, Greg Gutfeld lacks. The joke is that I have weird, smooth, pale little boy testicles, you see. And by setting up a comparison between Greg Gutfeld and my balls, I could further elaborate by saying something like, and also like my weird balls, Greg Gutfeld is empty inside. And so on. Look, it's not perfect, but my point is that I'm giving your brain something that's easy to digest. Like my weird balls! The problem with Gutfeld's joke is that he wanted to land on the phrase, forces always come in pairs. So the natural joke writing instinct would be to take one of the words and give it a double meaning, something like, much like a Sith and apprentice, forces always come in pairs. Or perhaps, much like a fruit fetishist, forces always come in pairs. See? Words are neat. But Greg actually does the opposite of this, creating a simile that makes your brain have to work backwards to understand it. A massage therapist, when doing a massage, presses and rubs on muscles that a fucking alien might perhaps define as a force. He's saying his massage, or his force, comes in pairs, like his nightly massage therapists. So what he's ultimately saying is just, I get a massage from 2 people every night, as his ultimate joke. And that's the ending problem, which is that the final observation being made isn't creative or absurd or funny or an observation or unexpected, but rather confusing. Why do you have 2? So your brain is left searching for something it might have missed, and you find yourself...
Yeah, you're like, what the fuck is this idiot talking about?
Repeating the joke in your mind several times to understand it, ultimately getting disappointed at the result. I probably didn't need to break it down that much, but I wanted to, because
I remember when this guy in the middle of this fucking video, and he had like 300,000 fucking follows or something too. I didn't understand it. He started talking about the dirty dishes in his fucking... Or sorry, it was his old dishwasher in his old house. And something about it, the dirty dishes in the old dishwasher in his old house. And this was just in the middle of the video. He started talking about this inane story. And I was like, I think you're funny in some weird shadow realm in your own mind. You're like playing a character in an anime in some kind of Truman Show in your fucking head, and I believe that you that you believe that your weird fucking story about the dirty dishes in the dishwasher that was left in the dishwasher for like 9 months until you sold the house or something. It was such a weird, dumb story. And I was like, why are you talking about this? And there's no haha here. It's more like a haha, you're pretty funny. Like funny, like odd. Like no haha, laughter. There's no haha laughter. It's more like haha, okay, you're really fucking bizarre. You know?
I wanted to explain why it's fundamentally...
It's weird because I'm a bizarre person. I would say I make bizarre choices. I'm a bizarre fucking person, I would say. And it's weird when I'm calling you bizarre, something is really wrong, you know? But you tell this a bizarre story.
Bad.
Then I wrote a comment in the guy's YouTube channel, like comment. I was like, do the dishes in the dishwasher talk to you? Are they your prophet? Do they tell you stories when you're lying there in your bed at night? Like, I mean, that was literally the comment I left. I was like, please tell me more about the dirty dishes in the dishwasher that sat there for 9 months. What the fuck was this story about? You think you're funny. You're not funny. You just went on some fucking weird, crazy fucking tangent that makes no sense to me. And it's weird because I am a bizarre guy who likes weird Aqua Teen Hunger Force fucking like comedy that doesn't have a lot of basis in reality. I'm a weird, bizarre, chop and skew comedy guy whose favorite show is Tom Goes to the Mayor. You know? I'm serious. My favorite television show is Tom Goes to the Mayor, which is just a bizarre Tim and Eric show out of bizarre just dementia land with no recognizable jokes. No, I mean there are some recognizable jokes, but there's no like structure or scripting. It's entirely freeform, fucking loose association comedy, probably while drunk and high, recorded in a sound studio, and then done with cartoons. And I believe that's the shows that I think are funny. And I love Simpsons and Futurama. I think classic humor is really funny too. But but I like random bizarre humor. And your dumb, weird fucking humor is so bad that the one audience member that I think you should sink should be me. Because I'm the only guy who laughs at that kind of crazy, like I love the Oblivion NPC stuff because it's so random. You can't see what the meth addict's gonna say next. You can't tell. There's no script. There's no. I mean, I love it. You know, and that to me is the funniest thing on the internet is Oblivion NPCs. And or Oblivion NPC videos like Vines where they just show crazy methamphetamine addicts on the street talking about walking on sunshine and shit like that. And I love that shit because it's not scripted, it's not normal, it's bizarre, it's off the wall humor, and it's just like now I think they call it unhinged, but I like unhinged. I like unhinged crazy stuff, you know. So, but you don't appeal. But your weird, stupid story about the two forces and the fucking the fucking shitty, massage parlor joke that was weird and off flavor for some stupid ass fucking do it live type personality guy, you know, and I don't know. I don't. It's weird when you don't appeal to me, because I like random like that. I actually thought the joke was random. It just wasn't funny, you know?
Gutfeld is a fundamentally bad comedian, made worse by his weird, cruel confidence and that weird, like, half tone he's doing where he starts up here and then kind of...
Yeah, he has that weird white thing where they seem superior. It's not a white thing, it's just like a white man thing. It's the superiorly. Their superiorly is the word I think of it. Because it's not superior. They don't want you to believe that they're superior to you. They just want you to believe that they're superiorly than you. You know? They want you to believe that they're speaking from some place of legitimacy and authenticity. But they're fucking dumb right-wing comedians who can't write jokes.
He eats the rest of it. He's doing like Colbert or something. I don't know.
Like I feel like my joke was funnier than anything they write.
Not to mention that this whole segment turns out to be about how
like you got this superior attitude, but I mean I don't know what you're superior about. You're often they made fun of you on The Simpsons with the older Marge's older sisters that work at the DMV. You're not funny. You're just kind of like
how he's going to buy
You're just kind of lame and white. It sucks, but you are. You're not funny. You're not funny.
Gun. Because he's scared of crime. And how we should all be...
Like your color of your skin has something to do with it. I'm saying the color of your culture it's like lame and it's white and it has no color to it. And I don't find it very funny, you know?
Scared too. Because
I'm a weird guy. I've sat there through entire goddamn comedy routines and not laughed once. Because I know what I think is funny. And it's not like I'm not trying to laugh or something fucked up like that. That would be fucked up to do to the comedian. I'm begging them to make me laugh. And they're just not random or funny enough. You know?
The Democrat...
Like this guy, he thinks he's really funny. He thinks he's so funny that he can make fun of conservative right-wing comedians. But I've consistently watched him try like 25,000 times to make me laugh. And he still hasn't managed to do it. He is less funny. I don't say that to hurt him. It's just fucking true. He's a hack. He tries constantly to try to make us laugh. Now, I think the lady wrote a really clever joke about the loose association stuff, but I think he himself is not a funny person. And so it's not very fucking cool for him to make a video called "Why is conservative comedy so not very good?" Because honestly, of the two, I think you're both bad, and neither one of you guys make me laugh.
Democrats are planning to destroy the country by purpose.
But honestly, this guy made a better attempt at a random joke than you did. You're straight not funny at all. I've seen you try like 20,000 times to make me laugh, and have I not said on my stream something like 50 times now, don't try, you're not funny.
Fully allowing.
I've said it for 3-4 weeks. I watch him, once or twice a week for like 3 or 4 weeks or something like that, and I'm like, please stop trying. You're not fucking funny. And I don't know why I should listen to your criticism about them not being funny.
Crime?
Law-abiding people actually...
Because you're worse.
...will abide by the laws that are made, and criminals, they won't. They're criminals. So today's lawmakers just make it easier for themselves by making shoplifting and retail theft, car chases, and assault unworthy of arrest. It's all part of a greater mission to remake society into something new by destroying it first.
That girl's smart. She knows the girl won't push it with her. That she's going to step with like $5,000 from this. That girl's smart, in my opinion. And she probably doesn't do this kind of shit all the time. But when she does do it, probably once every 2 or 3 years, she steps with $5,000 or something like that. She's probably a lot smarter than most criminals.
What does that do? Well,
I thought about it for so long. Okay, I actually messed with an old shoplifting griftonomics idea, which was that they used to like to keep like computers and cell phones and tablets out in the aisle in Best Buy. And I come from the ilk of shoplifter that used to steal packs of cigarettes right out of the aisle while the people were like checking people out. I would walk up right in the front store while they were checking people out at checkout and start stuffing packs of cigarettes in my pocket when I was like fucking 15 or something like that, right? And one of the reasons I did this is you'd be surprised how easy it is to not hide. It's really hard to hide from them, but it's really easy to not hide from them and just blatantly steal and walk out of the store. It's more blatantly easy than you might think. I messed with it several times on a larger scale. Like we would fill entire shopping carts full of frozen pizzas, beer, straight out of the Safeway. Beer, crappy 3-2 beer, because you can't get anything better from Safeway in Colorado. And frozen pizzas, Robitussin, Ready Whip, so you could do, it was like you would have fun night, right? Yeah, like swear to God, I did this like 11 times or something like that. You get three to five of your homies together. You go on down to the motherfucking Safeway at Downing and Evans, and you fucking fill the fucking minivan with an entire cart of groceries of the best shit that a stoner could get from fucking Safeway, which is cartons of cigarettes, cases of beer, frozen pizza, and Robitussin, right? I wish I was kidding. And Ready Whip, right? And you do all this because, yeah, you're getting wasted that night, and you're getting trailer park hillbilly fucking slum under or whatever. But I mean, like, you know, you're gonna get wavy, you know. And then you pack a whole fucking shopping cart, both the bottom, I'm talking below the shopping cart where the fucking brace is by the wheels and shit. You're fucking you know, putting cases of beer in there, and they think you're, you know, fucking frat boys going for a college ride because the college is only 4 blocks away, right? And so then you're just like, you know, you're packing a fucking thing, and the security's watching you, but they don't think you're going to steal or anything like that because you've got a carton full of food. Now, if you're walking around with a backpack, shoving stuff in the backpack, they're watching on the cameras being like, look at this fucking idiot. But if you're filling a cart with food, they don't think a second, they don't put plain clothes or undercovers on you or anything like that. They're like, oh, he's going to spend a lot of money. We better less beat him. I don't want him to think we're suspicious of him. I don't even want the camera following him. They're like, we don't want to harass our normal customers. Trust me. And so you just fill a fuck. I did this like 11 times. And each time it was like $550 worth of shit. We used to kind of like start to add it up because it's funny. You know, we're in it for the fun and the funny. We're not in it to harm anybody, and I'm not proud of the things I've done here. I'm just talking about it was fun, and that's why I did it, and I'm sorry that I did it, but it was fun, you know? And so... And so then you go back to the Crack Shack, and I'll tell this story because I hope it gets back to the Crack Shack people one day, because they know what I'm talking about. You go back to the fucking Crack Shack, you fucking throw 5 fucking pizzas in the fucking oven, you invite 5 more stoners over, and you hand them 5 beers each. And you say, yeah, we got 10 more goddamn cases in the fridge, and they're like, bullshit, and they go into the fucking kitchen, and they're like, what? There's a fucking fridge full of beer, this is like $400 worth of fucking crappy 3-2 beer, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna drink a lot of it, because it's 3-2, we're gonna piss all night, and we're gonna break the toilet, because you break the toilet, you're drinking 3-2, shit, you take like 540s to get you wasted, it's so fucking worthless, I hate 3-2 beer, why do you guys sell that fucking piss water in America, and made America look bad? They all think we're milk drinkers, because we kind of are. We drink fucking Coors. We're milk drinkers. We kind of are. Like, Americans are milk drinkers. We drink Coors and Budweiser. We're fucking milk drinkers, kind of. I'm sorry, but I don't drink that shit. But you guys do. I drink Colorado crap beer and shit, and motherfucking Svedka, you know? And like, you know, Platinum 7X if I'm going poor or whatever. But I'm not the one to talk. I'm not a snob. But I'm talking like that piss water, man. I swear to God, you got to drink like 540s of it. It's worthless. It won't get you wasted. I don't care if you're skinny or whatever. It's just basically empty carbs. It's like empty beer without the alcohol. It's disgusting. You know, it's piss water. It's milk drinking. It's what milk drinkers don't drink milk. They drink piss water Budweiser at 3.2 a pop, you know? Fucking 3-2 beer. Fuck that shit. Anyways, so you get home, you open the case, you pop beers, you have 5 beers to everybody in a bong, and then you get fucking super high while 5 pizzas are cooking in the fucking oven. You hand out like, you know, 4 pieces, like half a pizza to everybody in the fucking room. You're like, here you go, and shit. And like, I'm from lower class. I'm from the lower class in the hood and shit. I'm sorry, but I am. I'm you know, I didn't always live like that, but there were a lot of times where I did, you know, and that was one of them. And so then we all started pounding Robitussin because we're aiming to Robo Trip and stuff. And we puke up the pizza and the crappy 3-2 beer. And we smoke like 2 packs of cigarettes each all night. We play Halo or something like that. I mean, I'm sorry, but that happened like 11 times or something like that. We must have stole like $7,000 and just shopping cart sprees is what we used to call it, the shopping cart spree. Want to do a shopping cart spree? And if you're an actual member of my crew, you don't say no. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not a fucking pussy. You want to do a shopping cart spree? No, I don't. It's about the most terrifying thing. Walking out of a Safeway with $550 worth of food, beer, Robitussin, Ready Whip. I'm serious too. And then, oh yeah, right. So when you're home, you're robo tripping. You're doing whippets. I'm serious. I can't drain this shit up. I couldn't make this up if I wanted to, huh? I'm not making this up. You can tell. Like, and I'm not bragging about this stuff. I'm just saying. Like, okay, now this story is an example of funny humor. And you get home to the Crack Shack where you and your punk stoner friends proceed to do whippets from your stolen fucking whippets, and stolen robo tripping. Eating crappy fucking Tombstone pizzas, 50 of them. We're like freezing them, cooking them, and freezing them and shit. 3-2 beer, 5 fucking 40s each. 5 40s, a 3-2 beer. You know, it's almost like 7 gram rocks. Who the fuck drinks 3-2 beer? I don't know why you would drink 3-2 beer, but a lot of America does, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, I don't know why. They think we're milk drinkers. It is because of the right wing that drinks Budweiser all day, fucking NASCAR dads. I'm sorry, but that's really how I feel. You guys call yourself men all the time. Real men, I think, have good grooming and don't drink piss water. Real men fuck with alcohol and women like real men do, or whatever your orientation is, whatever. It's just like kind of funny. It's like your image of this is not right. I'm sorry, and so. That's all I have to say about that. So I'll tell a story that I actually make you laugh. That's random and crazy. That has a lot to do with fun and randomness and just mindless self-indulgence. And if we're not doing stolen whippets, we're pounding Robitussin and drinking 3-2 beer and smoking our stolen cigarettes in case the fucking the guys got our license plate and call the cops on us to the fucking stoner pit full of the flop house full of 12 dudes drinking 6 dudes, 6 girls drinking crappy 3-2 beer at the age of 17, fucking stolen cigarettes and fucking pizza, fucking whippets. And I'm sorry, but whippets and pizza for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And I think my story's funny. I don't think these guys are fucking funny. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't think this guy bitching about him is funny, and I don't think this guy's funny. I think I'm funny.
Well, Newton also said
I wouldn't laugh, and I don't care if you think I'm funny or whatever. I'm just thinking I think this guy has tried all his life to be funny. This Some More News guy. I try not to be funny most of my life. You know what I'm saying? I try not to be the clown. When I was 17, I walked into my homeroom and there's no teacher there yet. I remember I was I got in a high-speed chase last night and I haven't slept, guys. Oh God. And they're like, dude, what? You're 15. Yeah, I got in a high-speed chase with a friend last night. And I'm exhausted. I couldn't sleep all night because of it. And then they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I was in a high-speed chase last night. We got away. And they're like, what? I got away. And they're 15. And they're looking at you. And they're like, I got away. I mean, I did. I got away. My friend's dead now. The only witness is dead now. But God damn it. That's not my fault.
What goes up must come down. The more the Dems and the media try to reduce your
I think I'm funny because I don't sound like anybody else. All these comedians, both sides, sound exactly like each other, which is so goddamn fucking boring to me. The last truly hilarious comedy troupe that I believed in was Garfunkel and Oates, but before that it was Sarah Silverman. There's only been a few, since the death of Robin Williams. I kind of thought that was the death of comedy a little bit. I don't really like modern comedy. I don't think you're fucking funny, I don't think you're fucking funny. I'm sorry, but I don't.
Security.
It's weird, and
it's
the
the rest of us.
I've had people try. I remember recently my ex-girlfriend. She was like, "I'm gonna try and figure out what your comedy is." And she was like, "I can't figure out what makes you laugh." And I'm like, "I know what it is. It's random. You can't script random. It has to be random."
Enhance it. At this rate, by 2022, we'll all be driving tanks.
And this is probably the larger issue.
You're not funny.
Which is that political comedy often works best when it's pointing out a truth of some kind. And while there are a lot of harsh truths to be said about Democrats, they aren't, purposefully trying to make crime legal. So it just feels like weird fear-mongering slam poetry. There's no teeth to his
It's weird fear-mongering slam poetry. That's a good way to put it.
Because his message is curated propaganda from one political perspective.
Yeah.
This isn't exclusive to the right, but any niche group pushing a political agenda. An example from the left.
Robo tripping on pizza and 3-2 beer. Yeah! It's a good Thursday night, bitch! We're 15 years old, Robo tripping on pizza and 3-2 beer, stolen fucking whippets, and we're getting all cracked out on Griffin Falls and crappy 3-2 beer and whippets and shit. Then we'll drive around and we'll smash fucking mailboxes with baseball bats and set fire to pumpkins on your fucking front lawns. I don't know. I'm sorry, but we were kind of the neighborhood baddies, I would say.
That would be something like
it wasn't like we were trying to harm anybody. We just needed fun. The way the heroin junkies need heroin. We needed fun. Whatever it was. Flushing M80s down the toilet. Fucking stealing beer whippets, 3-2 beer whippets, Robo-Tussin, and this is a true story or I wouldn't tell it. You know what I'm saying? Because there's so many witnesses to this one. There was 12 witnesses to this particular story that I'm talking about. The night that the many nights that there was 10 nights where we just sat there and ate stolen pizza and did whippets out of Reddit whip cans and drank Robo-Tussin all night and smoked stolen cigarettes. And I'm sorry, I know that's really horrible to do. It's a safe way, but I mean, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars have I spent at Safeway in my life? It's probably a lot. It's like $350,000 or something dumb. They were like my grocery store for a very long time, for like 17 years. And so, yeah, like I think about it and I'm like, yeah, I mean, well, we, you know, Safeway and I have we got a complicated relationship. You broke my shoulder one time when I was shoplifting. I stole 11 minivans worth of groceries from you. I think we're even. I have a complicated relationship with my neighborhood Safeway. That's funny to me. That's American humor. You guys have a complicated relationship with the 7-Eleven or the Safeway that you steal from all the time? Do you have a complicated relationship with Uber Eats? Do you ask for too many returns? Do you have a complicated relationship with Walmart? Do you and your wife have a complicated relationship with Walmart coupons? But I think I'm funny, damn it. These guys aren't funny. I know they aren't. They're not funny.
Toilet Paper USA.
Do you have a problem with iPhone returns? Do you have a problem with stolen gasoline or stolen tires? Do you steal license plates from time to time?
A place where people like to blow off steam about.
You know how many license plates I've stolen? Probably like 40. I've stolen so many cars and so many license plates. None of them having to do with money. It's funny to me. I'm sorry. It's funny. That part's not funny.
Grifters like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro. I get it. Believe me.
I've not stolen so many cars. I'm sorry. I've been... what do you call it? Accomplice. I think that's the word. I've been accomplices to about 5 GTAs in my lifetime. 2 of them were high-speed chases.
The things they like to do.
And I'm just saying, you know, I'm not proud of that. That's not something that's funny. You know, now I'm not being funny. I'm sorry. I don't brag about these things. This is not me bragging. I'm just saying that, like, when I was younger, I was crazier. And so we can have a lot of fun, like, talking about whippets and 3-2 beer and fucking Tombstone pizza and robo-tripping when you're 15 and stealing shopping carts worth of stuff from Safeway and shit like this.
It's Photoshop, like, almost believable but fake tweets from these people, which is frustrating when they're perfectly real.
I remember my
tweets
friend
you could actually mock. So it just feels like wish fulfillment. And it's why a lot of Trump parodies fell short, because they just boiled down to...
So, my best friend was into geocaching for a long time, and if you guys don't know what geocaching is, I don't really want to waste the time to tell you what it is. But anyways, I guess I will. It's a GPS tracker that you go find in the world that makes you feel like you're a secret spy that's playing a game that the rest of the world isn't playing. Right? And a good geocacher would describe it as that as well, I would say. It's in geocaching communities, if there's a human standing around and they might see you find the geocache, that might get the geocache compromised, and somebody spent a lot of time putting the geocache there as a secret Easter egg hunt that's free that gets you exposed to urban exploration, city exploration, just travel. It's an Easter egg hunt game. It's free. It's totally fun. And when you get there, there's like little gifts and fun little toys and stuff in the geocache so you can prove to people that you were there. You take a picture and you put it on the website and you're like, hey, I made it to this one and all this. So my best friend, he knew this. And so he picked close to one of the tallest trees in Denver. And he had me spot him while he climbed it. And it took him like 3 hours. This is not this is like a tree. It's a big tree. It was a big tree in a city of Denver park. And he was like, I'm gonna do the hardest geocache in the city. And I was like, okay. And he was like, now I can fall out of this tree and straight up die, and it will be your fault if you don't help me. So he tied a rope around his waist and he had to secure it to the tree as he was riding and shit, because it was so high. And it was crazy, and he didn't have the right shoes for it. He didn't think about the shoes when he left the house that day, so his shoes weren't too good, and I think he cut off his feet pretty bad. But it was just kind of funny. And then he put like the worst geocache in Denver and the tallest tree in Denver, pretty much. It's not the tallest tree in Denver, but it's when I think of it, I'm like, yeah, I don't know too many more trees in the city that are that tall. And he did this just to torture these idiots who were just, you know, who were like obsessed with geocaching just like him. And he was like, what's the worst thing that we could do to these guys? Force them to climb a tree for 3 hours, and that's what he did. And I think this is so funny. I think that's actually a very funny story about just like torturing people that are caught up in the like little hipster mind games and in little corners somewhere. They're hunting geocaches. The people that you think are doing stuff, they are doing stuff. They're looking for geocaches. You ever seen somebody act all sneaky like he's a criminal, but you can tell he's not robbing anybody or anything like that? That's probably a geocacher. You know, there's always something that they're up to that you don't know what's going on. And so yeah, he abused this, and then so later on, I remember like we looked back at it like 2 or 3 years later, and like goddamn 300 people or something had climbed that tree. And I was like, why did you do this? Now I didn't have no issue with him doing it. I'm just like, I think it's so genius. Why didn't I think of doing stuff like that? like God damn it. He got so many of those idiots to climb the tallest tree in Denver, which is so dangerous, actually. I remember thinking that he could definitely die doing it. He was like definitely doing things that could cause him to die. It was, you know... And yeah, and so I don't know, that's only funny, it's probably not funny to other people, but I still think the story's better than the comedy that these people are telling. It might not make you laugh like that, like the part before about the 3-2 beer and the Robitussin and the Ready Whips. Ready Whip fucking whippets. You guys ever done like 50,000 whippets? Because I have. You want to know why I'm an idiot? And why I don't face anybody or ever talk to anybody anymore or do anything, have any friends or anything like that? Oh yeah, probably. I had a brain once till I did 50,000 whippets, and yeah, you lose about 1 million to 3 million brain cells every time you do a whippet. And oh boy, we did a lot of whippets for many years. Am I proud of this? No. I still think I have a very good brain. You know. But I don't think the 50,000 whippets were too wise. And every time somebody, like my mother, is like, why are you so dumb on drugs all the time or whatever, you idiot or whatever, and they're like, you had such a dumb life sometimes or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of was crazy and all this. And then I think about, man, it must have been the 50 pounds of shrooms or the 800 hits of acid or the fucking 25 years of tobacco and marijuana, the millions of gallons of liquor, millions or something, tens of thousands of gallons, just gallons of it. Just gallons of it, as long, you know, talking about like K-Dot talking about, you know, swimming pools and stuff, right? Yeah, like that. And I know that every time I say something stupid or that I'm not funny or that my brain is hiccuping or that I can't find my way out of a simple thing or I can't do a simple rust jump or something like that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm dumb, I'm autistic, blah, 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 I'm Asperger's and all this. I think about the literal hippies King's Ransom and drugs that I've done, and I'm like, yeah, that I'm glad that my brain still works. I'm glad that I have at least one friend, but I mean, when you look back at the millions of gallons of liquor, the thousands of pounds, it must be thousands of pounds of marijuana or something like that, the thousands of pounds of tobacco, and like the you know, how many hundreds of grams of heroin, thousands of grams of methamphetamine. And I'm just, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I'm demented. I have a giant black hole in my brain that you can see on the X-ray or the MRI. I did, you know, and this is why I am what I am. And I think people want me to feel shame or hate me or something. No, I'm brain damaged. Quite literally, legally so. And so I just don't feel that bad that I'm not funny like these guys. They seem to really care what the world thinks about them or what other people think about some contender or something. I'm just glad that I'm still here. I'm glad that I have one single friend left or whatever. You know, I mean, I've got many friends, but I don't talk to any of them. So it's just sort of weird. It's like I'm glad that I still have somebody in the human race that I bother talking to. I'm happy that I'm just still here, you know. And so the comedy, it doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't matter if I hit it out of the park or make them laugh or not. And I try to be naturally kind of oblivion NPC funny. I try to be. I do.
Pointing out stuff about him we don't like, but exaggerated. Remember the President Show?
I'm not trying to be funny right now, or I'd have to be crazy. I'd have to act all crazy.
As a kid.
I don't like acting crazy.
Who are they? They are incredible real estate guys who owned Studio 54, and that's a place where you could do anything. Yeah, what the heck is wrong? Fake children.
We are not
fake children. Fake children.
They're not fake.
Fake children. Play with the kids?
You're not funny.
Yeah, they're fun.
What's fun about them?
Pushing aside the talent of the performers or writers.
Jesus Christ, those kids, do they understand that you're an actor?
Why would we need or want a show like that? It's all pandering, lowest hanging fruit, which is great if you like coming inside of pairs, but not cutting edge when it comes to comedy. It's not exclusive to the right, but the right seems to do it almost exclusively. And we'll definitely get more into what Trump specifically did to comedy, but I need to talk about Gutfeld a little bit more. Gary, get the f*** out of here. Why are you still here? I'll talk to you later. Now, I don't want people to think that Gutfeld is going to be my only example of conservative comedy. But the reason we need to talk about this wet sack of oats is that he's apparently getting higher ratings than any other late-night talk show host. And that seems like some Twilight Zone shit, right?
No, it doesn't. It seems that half the country likes right-wing stuff. Is this amazing to you?
Is our entire premise to this video wrong?
Yeah, I think it is. It's a little bit, like, I think it's dumb, because when you look at the numbers, it's 50% leftist, 50% rightist. Why shouldn't the right have some comedy? Why shouldn't they have any comedians? Why shouldn't they have popular comedians?
Actually, extremely popular and good.
Same as us.
Or perhaps...
I mean, we have our Dave Chappelle's. They have their... whatever they have. Maybe Hot Pocket, right? They probably have what's his name, the Mormon comedian, you know, Hot Pocket. I can't think of his name. Hot Pocket. That guy, I can't think of. He's very funny, but I think they've got like one good conservative comedian.
That Fox News in general gets higher ratings than any other news.
We have all the greats. Sarah Silverman, you know, some of them are dead now. Dave Chappelle, Will Arnett. I mean, there's so many.
Station. Not because it's the most popular, but rather because it's the only right-leaning cable source. So of course, everyone right-leaning will flock to them, whereas centrist or left-leaning viewers have a larger spread of options. But again, I would argue that all late night is toothless, pandering often to liberals. But the likes of Colbert and Kimmel at least have clear jokes. Good jokes? That's extremely debatable. But this is how low we're making the bar
Colbert,
in this episode. We're not judging the quality of jokes, just that they're able to competently make them. Anyway, since the internet exists and cable in general is dying, Fox is seeing a historic dip in ratings because of the fragmented way in which people get their news. Conservatives and liberals have options now, you see. And so yeah, Gutfeld is watched more than other late-night comedians because he's the only late-night comedian that appeals to conservatives. And if conservatives had a funnier option, I'm sure they would jump on that. Sorry, Greg, but it is obviously true. And here's the thing.
Okay, guys, it is 3:12 in the morning. I am tired, and I've kind of petered out here and told my last story and done my last game and had my last session. Kind of want to be up earlier in the day a little bit, I think, so I'm just going to go to bed now. I want to say thank you so much for your time. I want to come and say goodnight to you. Hello, I love you. Thank you for spending time with me. I'm trying all kinds of different camera angles. I'm trying all kinds of different stuff, different styles, different games, doing co-op. Sometimes I'm streaming, sometimes I'm not. I'm switching it up. I'm hooking left, I'm hooking right. I'm enjoying it. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting in. I've conquered the abuse. I've conquered the anger. I've done pretty well. I've had a metamorphosis. I've changed, and I'm very happy. And I want to say thank you for hanging out with me today. Just a reminder, you've been watching Skycat Live. I'm a full-time variety gamer all day, every day. Put me on in the background. Click on the cast page to donate if you're on YouTube, because as I'm not an affiliate of YouTube yet, but I will be. At Twitch, I am an affiliate. Come give me a like or a sub or a follow. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And yeah, and I love you guys. Thank you so much. And all right, you guys have a good day. I will say peace out and go to bed, and I'll be up here in about 8 or 10 hours, something like that. Probably more like 12, because I'm gonna go for a walk if it's sunny tomorrow, and I think it probably is. So I'm gonna go for a walk for like a 2-hour walk tomorrow, and then I'm gonna get on. Probably play some games. Might be 7 days to die. Might not be. I don't know. And I guess that's all I have for you. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your time. It's been 11 hours and 10 minutes. Those 11 hours and 10 minutes will be placed on my YouTube over the next 12 hours, and all of the videos that I have done have gone live, I believe. Let's just go double check the channel content. Did I get all this? Yep, I got it all. Look at that. I got them all titled. Got them all in there from 6/7, right? Today is 6/9, but yep, 6/8 will be up on my channel in the next day. I've seen a lot of views and love and stuff. Thank you so much for the time and everything. I like the long forms. I'm here to entertain you, as you can see, for 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24 hours in the last 7 days. Whatever it is. No more than that. 3 or whatever, 4, 8, 12, 12, 10, 14, 16, 20, 24, 26, 30, 34, 38, 42, 40, 40, 44, 46, and this is since the 4th. That's 5 days. 46 hours and 5 days. You know what I'm saying? I fucking love you guys. Rick and Morty forever. Skycat Live forever. Forever. For all of our lives. You know, Skycat Live forever. Forever. I love you guys. Peace.